La séance est ouverte. L'ordre du jour appelle notre débat conjoint selon la procédure d'urgence. Nous entendrons d'abord la présentation par M. Emmanuel Zingeris du rapport de la Commission des questions politiques et de la démocratie intitulé « Les conséquences politiques de l'agression de la Fédération de Russie contre l'Ukraine ». Ensuite, Mme Linda Hofstede-Halleland présentera le rapport de la Commission de la culture, de la science, de l'éducation et des médias relatif à la guerre d'agression contre l'Ukraine, participation des athlètes russes et bélarussiens aux Jeux olympiques et paralympiques de Paris 2024. Nous devrons en avoir terminé avec l'examen de ce texte, vote inclus, à 5h30. Nous devrons donc interrompre la liste des orateurs vers 5h05 afin de pouvoir entendre la réplique de la Commission et de procéder au vote nécessaire. Les rapporteurs disposent chacun et chacune d'un temps de parole de 7 minutes pour la présentation de leur rapport et de 3 minutes pour répondre aux orateurs à la fin de la discussion générale. Maintenant, la parole est à M. Zingeris, rapporteur de la Commission des questions politiques et de la démocratie sur le premier texte. Emmanuel.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Chers amis, I would like to say that today we are facing 500 days when we're witnessing Russia's illegal and unprovoked war of aggression against Ukraine. 500 days Ukrainians are defending values of Europe, not only on the front line, Mr. President, but the voting inside of their parliament. Istanbul Convention passed through. The other extremely important conventions and bills are approved by the Parliament of Rada during the everyday bombing of Kiev, Odessa, and other major cities and villages. As the Ukrainians advance and liberate areas of their territory now illegally occupied by the Russian Federation, we fear new evidence of war crimes will emerge. The current destruction of Kakhovka Dam confirms the barbarism of Putin's war machinery, of war crimes and ecocide. In defending of sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity of their country, Ukrainians are protecting the values of us, of Council of Europe, of Charter of United Nations. One of the main political consequences of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine is that it has forged a renewed bond amongst democracies in support of Ukraine, not only here in Council of Europe, but in all democratic world. The current summit in Reykjavik the current Reykjavik summit was extremely successful, is the expression of this unity around common values, of the resolve to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. The summit in Reykjavik shows that for the Council of Europe and its member states, supporting Ukraine is a political imperative in everyday life. For Council of Europe member states, supporting Ukraine is important not only as an issue of rule of law and international justice, dear friends, but also to protect democratic security and stability here in Europe. To turn this commitment to the reality is of the most important to step up the assistance to Ukraine now. We must complete a comprehensive system of international accountability of Russian Federation. We welcome, all of us, the register of damages for Ukraine as a historic result, and we will implement very soon in reality in The Hague. But we must keep pursuing full accountability and the establishment of a special tribunal for crimes of aggression. We must ensure this full accountability includes those military and paramilitary groups who participate in the Kremlin aggression against Ukraine and actually, Mr. President, in the aggression in other places like Syria, like Africa. They must declare like international terrorist groups. I'm talking about Wagner and Kadyrov groups. Dear colleagues, Today we will vote in favor for all points mentioned by me and mentioned by you. Thank you for being extremely inclusive during all stages of preparation. Thank you for your amendments in Political Affairs Committee. And I would like to say that our report will cover from migrants to energy, economic leverage to elite capture, ecocide created by Russia. And actually, we just have, Mr. President, we just have Mr. Zelensky's statement 2 hours ago that prepared provocation from Russian side on Zaporozhye nuclear power plant are now in preparation, and he has warned the whole world. We will try to this new fact to react. Disinformation to energy blackmail, the kidnapping of Ukrainian children, the putting down the whole Russian democratic society, and Lukashenko, who is on the side of this criminal war on side of Mr. Putin, putting down, we just heard Madame Sveta Tsikhanovskaya, the democratic society, and they're fighting for democracy in Belarus, and Ukraine war means will have effect on Belarusian society too. So, ending, I would like to encourage you to build resilience in your society against the Russian aggression in every day, not looking you have on the newspaper first page or not the events in Ukraine, and don't forget that Moscow is doing a mockery and humiliation from all our sanctions. They have 110, in every pocket they have 110 schemes how to avoid the sanctions, and we will try to build the wall of shame for those banks and those firms, even those countries who are supporting in avoiding the sanctions declared by European Union, by all of our countries, and by United States. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Zingris, dear Manouidis. Now I call Madam Helleland, Rapporteur for the Committee on Culture, Science, and Education and Media, to present the second report. Linda, you have 7 minutes now and 3 minutes at the end to reply to the debate. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, Ukraine continues to stand up against the Russian aggressor with resolve and determination. They are on the front line for democracy and our European values. At the same time, the IOC is considering lifting the ban on Russian and Belarusian athletes from participating in the Paris Games next year. It's deeply worrying and disappointing. Our debate and this resolution are therefore very important. We are not just debating sport and participation in the Olympics. We are also debating how to defend our values, values we share with the Olympic movement. Life, human dignity, and peace, as enshrined by the Olympic Charter. I hope the IOC and the Olympic movement are listening to our debate today. I hope that IOC are ready to take responsibility. The Olympic movement plays a fundamental role. Their decisions have a huge resonance and deep global impact. In February last year, the IOC condemned Russia's breach of the Olympic truce and decided to ban Russian and Belarusian athletes and officials from participating in international competitions. They urge all international sports federations to relocate or cancel events planned in Russia or Belarus. Our Culture Committee welcomed and supported this call. But 16 months later, knowing that the war of aggression is still ongoing, knowing that the suffering of the Ukrainian people is worsening, the IOC is considering allowing Russian and Belarusian athletes to participate as neutral in the Paris Games. As a human rights organization, we must raise our voice against this. So why would the IOC change its position? it has been argued that the ban is, one, a possible infringement of the fundamental rights of Russian and Belarusian athletes to participate in sports, two, not in coherence with Olympic values, and three, that it is inconsistent and self-centered in a turbulent world. Also, it has been argued that a call on the IOC from the Assembly to maintain the ban is in conflict with the autonomy of sport. As I have explained in my report, none of this is true. Firstly, a ban on Russia and Belarusian athletes from the Paris Games is not an infringement of athletes' rights to participate in sports. It is not a fundamental right to participate in the Olympics and international competition. Secondly, when the IOC decided to ban Russian and Belarusian athletes, they said it was because the Russian invasion of Ukraine represents a blatant violation of the Olympic truce. This has not changed. The war of aggression against Ukraine is still a blatant and ongoing violation of the Olympic truce. It is still a major threat to peace and human dignity. The situation has in fact worsened since last year. And thirdly, to the argument that the ban is inconsistent and self-centered, I will say the following. This war of aggression is of a totally different nature and scale than other ongoing conflicts. A superpower has threatened nuclear escalation. Russia is challenging the existing international legal order. And lastly, regarding the issue of the autonomy of sports, it's not an issue. We are urging the IOC to make the right decision. And I must say, these are core principles of great value. Peace, global stability, safeguarding the international legal order. Dear colleagues, we have the right to voice our opinion. We cannot silently endorse a decision to lift the ban when the destiny of Ukraine and the human rights of its people are at stake. Russian and Belarusian participation in the Paris Games is therefore unthinkable. Their participation would de facto prevent others from participating. Ukrainian athletes would not participate. Finding acceptable criteria for Russian and Belarusian participating as neutral is near impossible. It is inevitable they will link to their countries. So we must therefore call on the IOC to maintain the ban. There is no such thing that as a neutral athlete. We must urge national IOC representatives as well as national and international sports federations to stand up against IOC's proposal to allow participation under neutral flag. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Helleland. And now in the debate, we first go to the 5 speakers on behalf of the political groups. And first in the debate, I call Mr. Casper van den Berg from the Netherlands. Casper speaks on behalf of the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats in Europe. Casper, het woord is aan jou.
Dear Chair, the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats in Europe wants to express its heartfelt gratitude to the rapporteurs of today's debate, Mr. Zingeris and Ms. Helleland. They have done an impressive job working on a topic that is, or should be, the highest priority to everyone here at the Council of Europe, namely Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. Thousands of civilians have been killed, alongside the tens of thousands of Ukrainian military who have died protecting their country, and over 14 million Ukrainians have been forced to flee their homes. The Russian army has committed heinous acts of savagery and war crimes, including the expulsion of Ukrainian children. ALDE strongly condemns once again the Russian Federation's full-fledged attack on Ukraine with the Belarusian regime's complicity. While politics usually is primarily the realm of politicians and public authorities, in the face of such a fundamental attack on the core values underpinning our societies, societal institutions, including the IOC and its constituent sports bodies, cannot look away. Instead, they should bring the weight of their moral authority and renown to the public consciousness and should not allow the Russian Federation and Belarus to be represented in the Paris Olympic and Paralympic Games for as long as the war of aggression continues. ALDE thereby underlines the resolution of the Committee of Ministers of 26 October last year. There is no doubt that participation by athletes from these countries would be used as a propaganda tool by the regimes. We have seen the Russian and Belarusian authorities do this over the past period. Their participation would hinder other athletes, not least Ukrainian athletes, from competing. Allowing for these athletes to participate as neutral individual competitors offers no solution because it will not provide the required safeguards and will not be a response worthy of the Olympic spirit. Moreover, as we know that Russian and Belarusian elite athletes receive state salaries, there is no realistic way thinkable that they could demonstrate their neutrality or distance themselves from these regimes. If for nothing else, it should be out of respect for the nearly 300 Ukrainian sportsmen and women that have to date lost their lives in the war, and the children whose lives have been cut short and who will never have the chance to excel at sports, that the sports world should stand up for the basic values of liberty and democracy. Thank you.
Dank u wel, Casper. Now, Mr. Alexei Goncharenko from Ukraine is going to speak on behalf of the European Conservative Groups. Alexei, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Microphone.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President, and special thanks to rapporteurs, special ačiū to Emanuelis Zingeris for great job done. Thank you very much for this so powerful, so important report. And now we're speaking about sport. And we are speaking the word neutral. And I want to take this point and to go ahead. What is really neutrality? Can we really be neutral in the world? You know, when I'm hearing that, it's not just from sportsmen, it's a culture people, artists. We see people in Monaco, Courchevel, Vienna or Geneva sitting in restaurants and saying, you know, I'm Russian and I'm neutral. No, you are not. If you want to be Russian, not with the word bad Russian, you just need to name evil as evil. You just can't be silent. No, you just need to speak, you just need to talk. And in this case, you can't be just Russian. In other case, you are bad Russian because you have responsibility for what your country is doing. Speaking Russian now, I'm speaking about Russian citizens. We are not Nazis like they are. We are not speaking about Russians as ethnic group, because there are Russians, ethnic Russians in Argentina. They have nothing to do with the Putin's Russia. We can be neutral. There are ethnic Russians in Ukraine, and they are good Russians because they're fighting for Ukraine, shoulder to shoulder with Ukrainians, Jewish people, Crimean Tatars and others, for our values, for our country. But if you are a citizen of Russia, no difference of what ethnicity, and you are silent, it means you support Putin. And when we're speaking about sport, Olympic Games is not just about whose muscles are bigger. No, it's about the spirit. And first of all, you should be human. And when you're human, you can't be silent when you see how Russian Federation, your country, is killing children, is destroying Kakhovka Dam, is destroying the planet completely, is blackmailing with the nukes the whole world. You just need to speak. In this case, if you are doing it publicly, you can be just Russian. But if you want to be good Russian, it's easy way to do. Who is good Russian? Vladimir Kara-Murza is good Russian because he is detained in prison because he fought against the war in Russia. Who is good Russian? Good Russians are those who are fighting in Russian volunteer corps today. in Belgorod Oblast of Russian Federation to liberate Russia from Putin's regime. They are good Russian. It's not about Tchaikovsky, it's about those who are playing Tchaikovsky for tyrant and then try to say, you know, I am neutral. No, you are not. If you want to be good Russian, welcome to Ukraine, welcome to Russian Volunteer Corps. Do as what you can to stop the evil. In this case, you are really good Russian. All of else is just hypocrisy, and we need to stop it and prevent it spreading in our societies. Evil should be named as evil. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexei. Next in the debate, I call Mr. George Katougalis from Greece. He speaks on behalf of the Unified European Left. George.
Thank you, Tini. Dear colleagues, our group is not unanimous on the issue of the athletes. Some of us are following the opinion of the rapporteur. Some more have a different opinion. Take note that I am not speaking about a majority. We didn't put that on vote because we did not want it to be a divisive issue diverting us from the support to the values of this organization and the support to Ukraine. But this is exactly my point. The discussion of this report is very divisive, not among us, not just between PACE and the IOC. It brings an important breach, a schism, within the bloc that it supports Ukraine. The recent G7 statement is the following, I quote, "We are focused on ensuring that Russian and Belarusian athletes are in no way appearing as representatives of their states." President Macron, the host of the next Olympic Games, have said, I quote, "Sport should not be politicized. These major events are meant to allow athletes from all countries, sometimes including countries at war, to bring sport to life." More importantly than all, we are now in confrontation with the United Nations. Both the special rapporteurs of United Nations on the issue of cultural rights and on racism have said clearly that they consider that a blanket ban on Russian and Belarusian athletes would be discriminatory, a flagrant violation of human rights, and would raise, I quote, "serious issues of non-discrimination." Not it is factually correct what the rapporteur has said, that IOC has lifted the ban on Russia and Belarus. Russia and Belarus, as states, are continued to be banned. Russian teams or Belarusian teams are not going to be present in the Olympics. We are not going to see a hockey Russian team or a Russian basketball team. Individual athletes who are supporting the war are also excluded. Athletes who belong to groups, to athletic groups of the army or the police are going to be excluded. So again, it was a very bad decision to bring this item on the agenda of PACE. It is going to give an easy propaganda victory to the Russian regime, because IOC is not going to hear what we are going to say. Already President Bach of the IOC has lamented, I quote, "Unfortunately, a few countries, in particular European ones, are going beyond this very strict IOC recommendation." It is a mistake, dear colleagues, that we should definitely avoid for the future.
Thank you, George. Next in the debate, I call Madam Agnes Sirka Prammer from Austria, and Agnes speaks on behalf of the group of Socialists, Democrats and Greens. Agnes?
Thank you, Mr. President. It has now been almost 18 months that the Russian regime started its large-scale invasion on Ukraine. Since the very first day, the Council of Europe member states have been supporting Ukrainians in defending their sovereignty, their independence and the territorial integrity of their country. Because by doing so, they are at the same time defending the basic principles and values of the Council of Europe. They are defending the principles of democracy and rule of law. This war is not only fought with tanks and rockets, It is also fought with energy blackmail, with nuclear blackmail, and with disinformation. And this leads me to the second resolution. Olympic and Paralympic Games have always been more than sports events. They are a platform for athletes to perform, but also for nations to show their athletes. It starts at the opening ceremony and continues in victory ceremonies with flags being raised and anthems being played. Medals are being counted nationwide. Athletes are always competing for their countries. And that is what Russian propaganda will make of it. Even if under a neutral flag, the message will be, we are part of peaceful games. We are part of the Olympic family. We are level with all others. We are not bad. Yes, as a person involved in sports, it breaks my heart to watch games, knowing that there are athletes who have been training for years to get into the shape to qualify for the participation at the Olympic or Paralympic Games, and now cannot do so because their regimes started and continue a terrible war. But this is not about sports hearts breaking. It is about hundreds and thousands of Ukrainian and also Russian hearts that stopped beating. This is about crimes, war crimes being committed every day. This is about large amounts of soil and natural resources being destroyed on purpose. This is about people being tortured and murdered, about women being raped, and about children being kidnapped. What national governments and international institutions can and shall do to stop Russian Federation's aggression on Ukraine is listed in the resolution. In summary, it is to show the Russian regime and the world that the Russian leader has put the country outside of the community. What the IOC can do is simply not to give the Russian and also the Belarusian regimes the opportunity to use the Olympic and Paralympic Games in Paris as a platform to transport the very opposite of what the community of states has agreed. The IOC has to make it clear that there is no space on the pitch for those not playing by the rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnes. And last speaker on behalf of the political groups, Mr. Alexander Pojciev from Poland on behalf of the European People's Party. Alexander.
Chers collègues, nous débattons possible exclusion des athlètes russes et biélorusses des Jeux olympiques. Comité olympique international et certains d'entre nous partagent une idée que l'olympisme, c'est s'aimer la paix et que les athlètes n'ont rien à voir avec les deux régimes, ainsi que la décision de les priver de Jeux à Paris, c'est inhumain. Comme la solution, il nous est proposé leur participation sous le drapeau neutre. Non, non et non. D'abord, dans l'Antiquité, où nous voyons la naissance de l'idée olympique, tous les conflits armés devaient cesser obligatoirement. Vous vous souvenez que les forces russes ont attendu la fin des Jeux olympiques à Pékin en hiver? Pourquoi? Ils ont eu peur. Est-ce que le comité a reçu une telle déclaration pour 2024? Non. Drapeau neutre. J'ai regardé récemment le tournoi de Roland-Garros à la télé française. Les commentateurs, au moins 50 fois, pendant un match, ont appelé M. Medvedev, que j'adore comme le joueur du tennis, athlète russe. Est-ce qu'à Paris, les commentateurs vont dire pendant les matchs de foot, l'équipe neutre a gagné contre l'Iran? Non. Alors, cette neutralité, elle est où? On dit les athlètes, ils ont tellement travaillé. Et est-ce que les athlètes ukrainiens n'ont pas travaillé? Est-ce qu'ils ont eu les mêmes conditions d'entraînement que les autres? Non. Alors, l'égalité, c'est où? On dit qu'ils n'ont rien à voir avec les régimes. Non, ils sont mouillés jusqu'aux les oreilles. Et les collègues qui vont parler, qui vont me suivre, vont vous expliquer pourquoi. Je demande, est-ce qu'en 1940, avant que toutes les atrocités de la guerre en Pologne sont venues que tout le monde a appris tout ça, est-ce que quelqu'un a voulu organiser les Jeux olympiques? Non. Alors, en plus, je souligne que c'est le plus fort de toutes les sanctions qu'on puisse imaginer. Emmanuel Zingeris va parler des conséquences politiques d'agression russe contre l'Ukraine. Une grande conséquence, c'est la désinformation qui est menée par les forces pro-russes dans les pays qui sont les plus investis dans l'aide à l'Ukraine. Il y a seulement 2 jours, vous avez vu un débat sur la commission bolchevique créée en Pologne pour combattre non des vrais alliés russes, mais l'opposition. J'étais stupéfié de voir cette chœur de M. Mereshko, de M. Sigismund, qui chantait unisono support pour la création d'une telle commission. Je vous conseille et je vais vous envoyer les textes de cette loi pour le 2 et vous utilisez ça d'abord chez vous. Merci.
Merci à vous, Alexandre. Next in the debate, le prochain orateur est M. Piero Fassino de l'Italie. Piero.
Thanks. I will speak Italian, the Channel 4. Signor Presidente, la guerra, come sappiamo tutti, continua e continuano le sofferenze, le distruzioni, le vittime e si moltiplicano gli appelli a fermare le armi, a cercare di avviare un negoziato di pace. E le iniziative sono molte, il Vaticano, i presidenti africani, Lula, la Cina e tanti altri. Ma questi sforzi per cercare una soluzione di pace sono resi vani, vanificati, dalla scelta di Putin di annettere i territori del Donbass e la Crimea. Vedete, c'è una differenza tra occupare militarmente un territorio e annetterlo, perché occupare un territorio occupato ci si può sempre ritirare sulla base di un accordo. Un territorio annesso non ci si ritira più, perché se tu annetti un territorio dici quello è mio e non intendo restituirlo. E quindi a tutti quelli che invocano un negoziato, io dico attenzione che l'oggetto del negoziato non c'è, perché Putin ha annesso i territori e non intende restituirli. Gli ucraini legittimamente rivendicano che quei territori appartengono alla loro sovranità. E quindi io credo che dobbiamo essere molto consapevoli che soltanto il ritiro russo dai territori annessi può creare le condizioni per una pace. E questo è inevitabile. Ieri il segretario di Stato Vaticano, Parolin, che certamente è molto impegnato con l'iniziativa di pace vaticana, ha dichiarato che non vede nell'immediato prospettive per fermare le armi e prospettive di negoziato. È significativo che lo abbia detto. E quindi io credo che noi dobbiamo sostenere in ogni modo l'Ucraina e mantenere fortemente le pressioni. E tra queste pressioni, oltre alle sanzioni, c'è anche come evitare che lo sport sia una vetrina per il regime di Putin. Ora noi sappiamo che la Russia, quando va alle Olimpiadi, ci va con una squadra di atleti forti in ogni disciplina. Se guardiamo i medaglieri delle Olimpiadi, la Russia è sempre tra i primi 3 paesi per medaglie conquistate, il che significa che anche questa volta la Russia cercherà di rendere evidente la propria forza sportiva, ma che diventa un argomento di valorizzazione, di enfatizzazione che Putin utilizzerà sulla scena internazionale. E quindi io credo che per questo noi dobbiamo cercare di evitare che gli atleti russi possano partecipare alle Olimpiadi, non perché abbiamo qualcosa contro questi atleti e il loro diritto alla disciplina sportiva, ma per evitare che siano utilizzati come strumento di propaganda da parte di Putin. Infine un'ultimissima considerazione. Noi qui abbiamo messo come titolo della prima nostra rapporto conseguenze della guerra ucraina. Attenzione che le conseguenze sono molte. Penso per esempio al fatto che si manifesta sempre di più una contrapposizione West-Est e noi dobbiamo convincere invece il mondo che la guerra russo-ucraina non è un problema che riguarda solo l'Europa e il rapporto con l'Europa e la Russia. Pensiamo alle conseguenze nel Mediterraneo, dove la Russia è molto presente per relazioni storiche con l'Egitto, con l'Algeria, perché in Siria, perché nel Sahel con la Wagner, perché in questo momento nel Mediterraneo la Russia ha la più grande flotta che mai abbia avuto in quel mare. Ecco, credo che dovremmo valutare tutto e sapere quindi che continuare a sostenere l'Ucraina è essenziale per l'Ucraina, ma anche per la stabilità e la pace internazionale. Grazie.
Grazie, Piero. Next in the debate, I call Mr. Reinhold Lopatka from Austria. Reinhold, you have the floor.
Dear President, dear colleagues, of course, we all fully support Ukraine in the war against Russia. But on the other hand, I also fully support the point of view that we have to respect the autonomy of sporting organizations. And I'm a strong defender of sports' right to make its own choices without government interference. If governments or parliamentary forums try to decide which athletes can take part in which competitions, would mean for me the end of world sport as we know it today. Sport is very important as an independent bridge builder, and we should respect and we should accept the independence of sport. The Olympic Charter clearly states that the goal of Olympism is to place sport at the service of the harmonious development of humankind, with a view to promoting a peaceful society concerned with the preservation of human dignity. The Russian war of aggression is an indisputable crime against humanity, of course. The responsible perpetrators of these crimes shall be brought to justice. But does young sportsmen have influence on the decisions in Russia? I think they have no influence at all. And here, of course, these young sportsmen, these young sportswomen are misused by the Russian Federation as a propaganda purpose. I see this problem. But on the other hand, I think we have to respect that the world sports associations, they have to make their decisions. And we, as politicians, we should not interfere. We should not move in a direction taking away the responsibility from the sports world federations. We have so many dictatorships on this planet. And if we, as the Council of Europe, open here a door, what would we do when many of these dictators are misusing more and more their young sports people? I don't know how the International Olympic Committee can move on. So I think the only way is that we respect that is in the hand of the International Olympic Committee, and it is in the hand of the World Sports Federation how they decide. I respect this.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous, et merci à M. Lopka. Et maintenant, la parole est à M. Roland Rino-Buchel de la Suisse. Vous avez la parole, Monsieur.
Geschätzte Vizepräsidentin, geschätzte Damen und Herren, geschätzte Kolleginnen und Kollegen. Ich habe beruflich sehr viel mit Sportlern zu tun. Ich habe das mein ganzes Leben lang zu tun ist, ein Teil meines beruflichen Weges. Gestern und heute hatte ich telefoniert mit Sportlerinnen und Sportlern. Einer von ihnen sagte mir klipp und klar, als Goldmedaillengewinner bei Olympischen Spielen will ich gegen die Besten gewinnen, gegen die Besten der Welt. Ich will der Beste sein von allen der Welt, der Beste von allen. Und zwar der Beste von allen ehrlichen Sportlern der Welt, der Beste von den Sportlern, die nicht bescheißen, die nicht dopen. In diesem Sinne bin ich dafür, Sportlerinnen und Sportler von Olympischen Spielen auszuschließen, wenn sie Betrüger sind, wenn sie den Sport manipulieren, wenn sie dopen. Nun will diese Parlamentarische Versammlung Sportlerinnen und Sportler aus anderen Gründen ausschließen. Diese Versammlung will die Olympischen Spiele politisieren. Wollen wir das IOC tatsächlich dazu nötigen, seine Charta zu verletzen? Was ist denn das IOC? Das IOC ist eine private internationale Organisation, die als Verein gegründet wurde und ihren Sitz in Lausanne hat. Zum IOC komme ich gleich nochmals, zuerst aber ein paar Sätze zu den Sportministern unserer Mitgliedsländer. Vor 10 Jahren bekräftigten sie an der 5. UNESCO-Weltkonferenz der Sportminister in der sogenannten Berliner Erklärung, dass jeder Mensch die Möglichkeit des Zugangs zu Sport und zur Teilhabe am Sport als ein grundlegendes Recht haben muss. Und zwar unabhängig von ethnischer Herkunft, Geschlecht, Alter, kulturellem und sozialem Hintergrund und so weiter. Wenn wir in dieser Versammlung nun verlangen, dass russische und belarussische Sportlerinnen und Sportler ausgeschlossen werden, dann fordern wir, dass die Sportminister gegen die Berliner Erklärung verstoßen. Kommen wir nur zurück zur eingangs erwähnten Olympischen Charta. Dort sind unter anderem folgende Prinzipien festgelegt, ich zitiere. Die Ausübung von Sport ist ein Menschenrecht. Jede Form von Diskriminierung eines Landes oder einer Person aufgrund von Rasse, Religion, Politik, Geschlecht oder aus sonstigen Gründen ist mit der Zugehörigkeit zur olympischen Bewegung nicht vereinbar. Unter Kapitel 1 muss das IOC sogar gegen jeden politischen oder kommerziellen Missbrauch des Sports und der Athleten vorgehen. Es ist also eine aktive Verpflichtung des IOC, Interventionen der Politik in den Sport zu verhindern, und zwar unabhängig davon, ob diese hehre Ziele verfolgen oder nicht. Geschätzte Damen und Herren, ich bin überzeugt, dass der Sport ein politikfreier Raum sein muss. Wenn diese Versammlung nun Sportlerinnen und Sportler ausschließen will, dann fordert sie, dass das IOC seine eigenen Rechtsgrundlagen verletzt. Wollen wir das wirklich tun? Ich will das nicht. Die Olympischen Spiele, ein privat organisierter sportlicher Anlass, meine Damen und Herren, ein privat organisierter sportlicher Anlass, sollen und dürfen nicht politisiert werden. Sportler wollen gegen die Besten gewinnen. Und zwar unabhängig davon, wer im Land der Gegner gerade Staatschef ist. Meine Damen und Herren, die Besten sollen Olympiasieger werden. Besten Dank.
Merci, Monsieur Michel. La parole est à Madame Olena Komenko de l'Ukraine. Désolée, Madame Olena Komenko, parce que Monsieur Zingaris a demandé un point d'ordre.
Micro.
Thank you, dear friends and colleagues. Don't forget, we have today a discussion about 2 extremely important reports. Please, if you have joined our joint presentation by 2 committees, please speak about 2 reports. That's my comment to you, please. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Zingaris, mais ce n'est pas un point d'ordre. Maintenant, oui, la parole est à Madame Olena Komenko de l'Ukraine.
Dear colleagues, let me congratulate both rapporteurs on their excellent reports. We are living through a watershed era, and the world will never be the same after February 21st, 2022. Russia attempts to reshape the current international order driven by their imperial vision. The democratic world played an abuser's card. They were naive about Russian real plans and all along became more dependent on natural resources of the Russian totalitarian regime. But it keeps getting worse. Russia uses scorched earth tactics. They plunder and destroy and try to wipe out Ukraine. They mined and destroyed Kakhovka Dam. They took as a hostage the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. They mined the Crimean Titan plant and shelled the ammonia pipelines. They exceed any expectations from the notion of madness and feed on the weak reaction of their opponents. They wish we never existed. Well, we are here, and here we are still fighting fiercely. But on our side, is naivety over? I'm not sure about that. Perceptions change drastically only after horrors of war are seen with your own eyes. It converts into support against the aggressor for the cause of just self-defense, but way too slow. The main burden is still carried by Ukrainians, and knowing about the vast human resource of Russia, their insane disregard for human rights and human life, we cannot scream enough how urgent it is. How urgent it is to scale up defense spending for all. How urgent it is to make our democracies capable of producing and maintaining necessary capabilities. Because without that, you cannot defend the very basic human rights cherished in this organization. Without that, your insane neighbor may question even the human dignity, and no one would be empowered to stop. This report, the political consequences of the the war of aggression against Ukraine, reiterates many important components to bring lasting peace, like strengthening the sanctions to cripple the war machine, destroying Ukraine, and setting all the necessary accountability mechanisms. On this background, we salute the Estonian government for setting up principles of the use of freezed Russian assets and hope for the adoption of the respective law soon. All European governments should follow this lead. It is popular nowadays to portray someone as a peacemaker, or someone can portray himself or herself as a peacemaker. All peacemakers may take note from this resolution, from the resolution on consequences, political consequences of the Russian Federation's aggression against Ukraine. Only steps reassuring the rules-based international order would bring true peace. And we are all eager and acting to see that day. Thank you, dear colleagues.
Merci, Madame Komenko. La parole est à Monsieur Maxim Vucinic de Monténégro. Il n'est pas là. Donc, la parole est à Monsieur Bernard Fournier de France.
Madame la Présidente, mes chers collègues, la guerre d'agression menée par la Russie contre l'Ukraine nous a incités à réaffirmer nos valeurs lors du sommet de Reykjavik des 16 et 17 mai dernier. Lors de ce sommet, il a été décidé que le soutien à l'Ukraine devait être un impératif politique pour le Conseil de l'Europe et ses États membres. Ce soutien est d'autant plus nécessaire que de l'issue de cette guerre dépendra l'avenir de nos valeurs démocratiques et la stabilité de notre continent. Si l'Ukraine ne parvient pas à faire reculer la Russie, celle-ci s'attaquera demain à la Moldavie et à la Géorgie, qui sont déjà la cible de tentatives de déstabilisation politique. La Fédération de Russie contribue déjà à fomenter des manifestations contre le gouvernement au pouvoir en Moldavie. Il mène également contre ce gouvernement de vastes campagnes de désinformation en ligne et des cyberattaques. La situation dans les régions géorgiennes, d'Abkhazie et d'Ossétie du Sud s'est également de nouveau dégradée. Une pression de plus en plus forte s'exerçant pour exercer sur ces deux régions, pour intégrer ces deux régions à la Fédération de Russie. Enfin, une victoire de la Russie impliquerait un statu quo politique en Biélorussie pour encore de nombreuses années. Il est donc essentiel que nous puissions nous rassembler autour des valeurs de notre organisation tout en soutenant le droit de l'Ukraine à se défendre. L'Union européenne, les États-Unis et le Royaume-Uni fournissent une assistance militaire à l'Ukraine en lui livrant des armes de pointe indispensables pour qu'elle puisse mener la contre-offensive. Je veux souligner l'importance de l'effort que cela représente pour nos États, tant sur le plan financier qu'industriel et logistique. Mais cela nous rappelle que la défense de nos valeurs a un coût. Parallèlement, les crimes commis par la Fédération de Russie continuent d'être documentés et répertoriés. Ce travail est indispensable pour pouvoir un jour traduire en justice les responsables des crimes commis dans le cadre de cette guerre d'agression. Un registre de dommages causés par la guerre a été créé lors du sommet, première étape vers un mécanisme international d'indemnisation des victimes de l'agression russe. Si de nombreux organismes travaillent à établir les différentes responsabilités, notre Assemblée doit continuer de plaider pour que les responsables des crimes de guerre russes, y compris au plus haut niveau de l'État, puissent être jugés et condamnés. Ils devront, le moment venu, répondre de leurs crimes. Enfin, si je me réjouis de voir que le soutien à l'Ukraine fait généralement l'unanimité parmi les États membres du Conseil de l'Europe, je regrette que ce ne soit pas le cas dans le monde entier. Nous devons nous interroger sur les raisons de ce soutien ou d'une neutralité bienveillante à l'égard de la Russie lors des réunions du Conseil de sécurité de l'ONU au regard de l'enjeu que représente la diffusion de nos valeurs. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Monsieur Fournier. La parole est à Madame Lisa Pacosta de l'Estonie.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, let me begin with a memory from my childhood in Estonia, its capital city Tallinn, occupied by Soviet Russia. In 1980, Tallinn was the venue for the sailing regatta of the Olympic Games held then in Moscow. Children remember this event very well because for the few days it was possible to buy chewing gum and bananas, which nowadays would be hard to believe that even these were not available under occupation. In fact, Olympics was designed wholly as a propaganda event by Soviet Russia. Even kids understood that. In order to oppose the Russian invasion to Afghanistan, democratic countries boycotted the Olympic Games in my home city. But even as a child, I was very proud of all the countries who boycotted Russia, because this was the only right thing to do. Dear friends, we can do it right today as well. It is absolutely clear that if we want to follow the Olympic principles, the Russian and Belarusian athletes and officials must be banned from international sport, including the Olympic Games. The Ukrainian fight for freedom is our fight. The murdered Ukrainian children are our children. This should not be forgotten or overlooked. We know well how Russia continues to use sport for propaganda purposes. Many Russian athletes have publicly expressed their support to the war. Russian sport authorities use sports washing in their internal propaganda. It was just a few days ago when the president of Russian Wrestling Federation, Mikhail Mamiashvili, expressed his readiness to drive the Russian team to the Paris Olympics on tanks. We have to tell him, you are not welcomed. Please stay home with your tanks. I thank the rapporteurs Emanuel Zingeris and Linda Hofstadt-Elleland for their reports. This assembly shall be clear in our messages. We express our full solidarity and support with the Ukrainian people. We support the ban of Russian and Belarusian athletes and officials from international sport, including the Olympic Games, and We urge the national IOC representatives and national and international sports federations to express their opposition to the IOC's proposal to allow Russian and Belarusian athletes to participate in the upcoming Paris Olympic and Paralympic Games. Therefore, the report and the draft resolutions have my full support. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Pacosta. La parole est à Madame Sibel Arslan de la Suisse. Sibel, la parole.
Besten Dank, Frau Vorsitzende, geschätzte Kolleginnen und Kollegen. Ich möchte mich bei den Berichterstatterinnen auch ganz herzlich bedanken, weil eben auch die Zeiten sehr schwierig sind und wir uns weiterhin mit all diesen schwierigen Themen auseinandersetzen müssen. Wir müssen uns auseinandersetzen, weil die Zeit nötig ist, dass wir nach Alternativen, nach Lösungen suchen müssen, wie wir auch mit autoritären Staatsmännern umgehen sollten. Deshalb ist der russische Angriffskrieg nicht nur ein Angriff auf die Ukraine. Dieser Krieg ist ein Angriff auf uns alle, auf unsere Werte, auf unsere nächsten Generationen. Mit all diesen Umweltschäden, die ein Krieg auch ausrichtet, wird es auch die nächsten Generationen beschäftigen. Und all diese TäterInnen, die die Verantwortung tragen, sollten deshalb, wie wir das auch in Reykjavik diskutiert haben, vor einer Sondergericht auch bestraft werden können. Deshalb ist die Errichtung so eines Gerichtes nach wie vor eben auch in Verpflichtung der nächsten Generationen sehr wichtig. Was hinzukommt, ist natürlich auch die Frage der Wagner-Gruppe. Eben solche Kriegstruppen, die überall immer wieder mit all diesen Kriegsmaschinerien versuchen, Gehilfenschaft zu leisten, sollen nach wie vor verfolgt werden. Ich glaube, zu Friedenszeiten Frieden zu verlangen, ist einfach. Zu Kriegszeiten für den Frieden einzustehen und dafür nach Alternativen zu suchen, ist für uns alle nach wie vor sehr wichtig. Nun ein paar Worte zu den Vorschlägen bezüglich der Sportlerinnen, ob sie jetzt zugelassen werden sollten bei den Olympischen Spielen oder nicht. Mein Kollege aus der Schweiz, Roland Büchel, hat es erzählt, Sport ist in der Tat etwas bindend und es sollte grundsätzlich auch sehr frei sein, sich hier eben auch zu betätigen. Was wir aber auch immer wieder sehen, ist, dass die SpielerInnen in den jeweiligen Ländern, insbesondere von den autoritären Staaten, auch ausgenutzt werden, damit sie im Lande selber Propaganda machen können, damit sie auch sagen können, dass sie überhaupt mit keinen Konsequenzen rechnen müssen. Aber es ist auch wichtig zu sehen, dass oft SportlerInnen auch unterstützt werden, sofern sie der Regierungen, eben diesen Regimen nahestehen. Alle anderen, die kritisch sind, die eben auch sich vielleicht dazu geäußert haben, was mit der Ukraine vielleicht seitens Russland passiert, werden auch nicht gefördert. Ich möchte hier ein Beispiel nennen. Denken Sie an die iranischen Sportlerinnen, die im Ausland waren, die ohne Kopftuch vielleicht geklettert sind. Sie mussten dann, sofern sie in die Regierung, in ihr Heimatland zurückgehen wollten, von der Mullah-Regime, wurden sie dann verhaftet und wir mussten kämpfen, dass sie auch weiterkommen. Deshalb ist es wichtig, dass wir, glaube ich, auch Konsequenzen zeigen können und von der Sport, gerade weil sie privat organisiert sind, Forderungen stellen. Und es ist wichtig, dass wir von hier aus diese Signale senden und die privaten Organisationen hier auch an die jeweiligen autoritären Staaten ein Zeichen setzen können. Besten Dank.
Merci Sibel. La parole est à Madame Ingerd Schott de la Norvège.
Thank you, Madam President. This is an important debate. I congratulate Mrs. Helleland on her work and call on you all to support the draft resolution. Now I would like to start with the conclusion. As long as there is war in Ukraine, Russian and Belarusian athletes can't be allowed to participate at the Olympic and Paralympic Games in Paris next year. Allowing them to participate under a neutral flag or banner is not acceptable either. Our Assembly must take a clear position on this issue, and we must use our voices to stand up for Ukrainian athletes. Their right to participate in sports is violated by the Russian aggressor. Madam President, ideally, sports and politics don't mix, but we all know that this is not the case. Sports and politics are tightly linked together. During the hearing on this issue in April, President Cox underlined that sport is a powerful tool. It has the capacity to transmit values and principles to society as a whole, not only to those taking part in it. I couldn't agree more. The international community has shown remarkable unity and strength in its response to Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. I encourage the world of sport to do the same and to not disengage itself from the rest of the international community. Taking a clear stand, Madam President, on this is not disrespecting the autonomy of sports and sporting organizations. Our Assembly fully respects the autonomy and the competence of the IOC, but we cannot remain silent if the IOC decides to withdraw the ban. We cannot silently endorse such a decision. As Mrs. Helleland states in her report, there are core principles of greater importance than the autonomy of sport. What is at stake here is the preservation of peace, global stability, the safeguarding of the international legal order, the destiny of a country, and the human rights of the Ukrainian people. We all have an obligation to uphold them. Madam President and colleagues, in addition to supporting Mrs. Helleland's report, I encourage you to reach out to your national IOC representatives and national sports federations. Urge them to express their opposition to the IOC's proposal to allow Russian and Belarusian athletes to take part in the upcoming Paris Olympics. It's the right time to do so, Madam President. Thank you.
Merci, Madame. Et la parole est à Monsieur André Gatolin de la France, le dernier orateur.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Mes chers collègues, je veux tout d'abord féliciter très chaleureusement nos deux rapporteurs, Emmanuel Zingeris et Madame Helleland, pour la qualité de leurs deux documents qui nous ont délivrés, et puis aussi des amendements qui ont été ajoutés, notamment par nos collègues et dont nous débattrons, nos collègues ukrainiens. Alors, le rapporteur Zingeris nous a invités évidemment à traiter les deux sujets. Et c'est vrai que les deux sujets sont éminemment liés. Et je dirais que finalement, et ça va être un peu difficile pour nos traducteurs, mais la question, c'est au regard de tous les crimes déjà commis contre l'humanité et bien au-delà par la Russie doit être mise au banc des nations, le bannissement. Et un des bannissements, c'est la question de leur présence et de leurs alliés bélarusses aux Jeux Olympiques. Et puis, de ce bannissement, il va falloir passer au banc des accusés. C'est le même mot en français, la même sonorité, mais c'est celle d'argumenter l'accusation. Et là, nous sommes bien dans ces deux tendances-là. Et s'il faut faire un autre lien, je dirais que malheureusement, la Fédération de Russie est d'ores et déjà médaille d'or, recordman absolu depuis le rétablissement du droit international après la Seconde Guerre mondiale, de la multiplication en 17 mois de toutes les violations du droit international, du droit humanitaire et du droit de la guerre. Alors, oui, il ne faut pas autoriser les athlètes russes et bélarusses à participer aux Jeux Olympiques. Et surtout pas sous cette mystification qui consisterait à les mettre sous bannière neutre. Vous imaginez un match de football entre Bélarussie et Fédération de Russie. L'équipe neutre vient de marquer un but contre l'équipe neutre, c'est formidable, l'équipe neutre a gagné. Mais bientôt, d'ailleurs, tous les athlètes, tous les pays voudront jouer sous bannière neutre, parce qu'ils seront sûrs de gagner. Peut-être reviendrons-nous peut-être à de véritables Jeux olympiques avec les valeurs fondamentales et humaines que nous devons respecter. Les arguments aussi contre cette bannière neutre sont évidents. Nous savons qu'une grande partie des athlètes russes de plus haut niveau sont des soldats et sont dans des équipes militaires payées par l'État. Vous voyez un instant, ces gens-là se tairent. Ils ne l'ont pas fait ces derniers mois. Ceux qui sont allés saluer la bravoure des gens qui adoptaient, soi-disant, de pauvres enfants orphelins ukrainiens déportés de force, ceux qu'on a vus dans les meetings de M. Vladimir Poutine. Alors je sais, mon gouvernement n'est pas favorable à ce que je dis. Ce n'est pas mon problème. Mon problème, c'est que je suis parisien, je suis français. Il y aura les Jeux olympiques. Je défends des valeurs. Et ces valeurs, je les défendrai jusqu'au bout. Je préfère être européen plutôt que français et je préfère défendre les valeurs fondamentales plutôt que les valeurs européennes quand elles ne sont pas bonnes. Et je terminerai en citant Pierre de Coubertin, un de mes compatriotes qui a recréé les Jeux olympiques en 1896. Il disait: l'important n'est pas de gagner, l'important est de participer. En l'occurrence, ici, il faut gagner. Il faut que l'Ukraine gagne et il faut que les Bélarusses et la Russie ne participent pas. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Gatolin. Il nous faut maintenant interrompre l'audition des orateurs. Les orateurs inscrits qui présents pendant le débat n'ont pu s'exprimer peuvent transmettre dans les 4 heures leur intervention dactylographiée au service de la séance pour publication au compte rendu. Ce texte ne doit pas dépasser 400 mots et doit être transmis par voie électronique. Et maintenant, j'appelle la réplique de la Commission. Monsieur Zingeris, vous avez 3 minutes pour répondre aux intervenants.
Dear friends and colleagues, I'm here from 93, just a bit celebrated, and thank you for the participation, 30 years of Lithuanian membership in Council of Europe, Estonian membership of Council of Europe, and Slovenian membership of Council of Europe. I remember the entry of Russia in 1996. Among obligations was to withdraw the Russian 14th Army from Moldova, to pay compensations for the Baltic deported to Siberia and to Gulag people, and many others. Most of those conditions were not implemented, even in the time of democratic Russia. Chechen war started, Russia war against Chechnya, and after that started all atrocities against Georgia, against Ukraine, and we have now the war against Europe. You can understand how alone Ukrainians are, how alone are Ukrainians now on the front line. We have now our troops there. We are not defending shoulder to shoulder our freedoms. They're defending our freedoms. They're voting for our values. So that is the reason when in my report I have absolutely clear included Wagner Group of a terrorist organization, Kadyrov Group like a terrorist one, and asking international governments to impose red notice for Interpol against every member of those 2 criminal huge entities. From other point of view, we have mockery of avoidance of circumvenance of the sanctions. We will create a wall of shame under our register and ad hoc task force to understand which banks and which companies are benefiting from the war and from the blood of Ukrainians. And certainly we'll be finally going to establish international tribunal, special tribunal against war crimes and against Russian aggression of Ukraine. From that reason, I would like to ask you to be together, united, and vote in favor for the report and all amendments in my report, and probably supporting the report of my neighbor. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Zingeris. Et Madame Heleland, vous avez 3 minutes pour répondre aux intervenants, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, colleagues. Thank you so much for your support. Our voices are clear. Russian and Belarusian athletes have no place at the Olympic and Paralympic Games in Paris next year. By lifting the ban on Russia and Belarusian athletes, the IOC becomes a tool for the Russian propaganda machinery. As Ms. Costa said, just a few days ago, the president of the Russian Wrestling Federation made an appalling declaration. Russian athletes should go to Paris in tanks if they are not allowed to compete under the Russian flag. This is what I'm talking about. This is propaganda. Many athletes have been used in propaganda to support the ongoing war. And this week, dear colleagues, I received this letter from the global athletes. More than 600 athletes have signed a letter to the IOC president. They are calling for a ban. We must support the athletes. All major organizations and institutions acting in the public and private sphere must stand up and bring the weight of their moral authority and renown to the public consciousness for a deep global impact. This includes the sporting world with its immense economic, social, and political leverage. Today, dear colleagues, proclaiming the Olympic values, Thomas Bach made a speech where he criticized the Ukrainian government. His so-called athlete-centered, value-based approach is simply an excuse to not take a strong stand against the ongoing war. The world of sports, which we love so much, cannot end up on the wrong side of history. And with their action to the IOC is undermining sports and the values of the Olympic movement. We are not trying to punish Russian and Belarusian athletes, but our assembly must do everything in its power to stand by Ukraine. The IOC cannot just ignore international condemnation and sanctions and the responsibility they have under the Olympic Charter. What is at stake is the preservation of peace, global stability, safeguarding the international legal order, the destiny of a country, and the human rights of the Ukrainian people. So again, we cannot allow the sporting world to end up on the wrong side of history. Let's use our voice as the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, representing 46 European countries. Let's then unite and vote in favor of this resolution. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Heleland. Est-ce que Madame Yascon désire répondre au nom de la Commission des questions politiques et de la démocratie? Vous avez 3 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Dear colleagues, I think it's very special that we have these two reports together. On behalf of our political committee, we are focusing on democracy. But our other committees, our colleagues, are talking about something very concrete that results from the absence of democracy and democratic governance by one aggressor who started the war. And on behalf of the committee, we welcome the report prepared by Emanuele Zingeris because we believe that this is the key priority of our organization now, that goes along together with the priorities that we discussed at Reykjavik summit and yesterday. What does it mean? It means that we need to make sure that democracies really work and they are protected. And this report sets the roadmap, the steps to the roadmap on what tools and what things we must do to make sure that democracy is protected. What I mean by that? With the Russian aggression, we see how much of the areas are affected in our democracies, not only in Ukraine, but also in your member states. Energy security, environment, food security, financial security, everything is affected. And we absolutely welcome that recommendations that are in the report regarding Ukraine, that sets the clear mechanism on creating on a register of the compensation of the damage, that sets an important, very important note on sanctions and what policies should be created that will serve as international guidelines now for the member states. Also, the report sets the clear recommendation on having verification and a tracking system of sanctions, goods and other things that shouldn't be entering the global markets. And all of these areas are so much affected. And this report is about Russian aggression in Ukraine, but in fact, it's much wider than that. And it refreshes our purpose of the Council of Europe. And it also speaks also not only for the member states of the Council of Europe. I'm absolutely convinced that it's an incredibly important report also for Latin American countries, for African countries, where the Russian aggression is very much into action. And it means that our democracies are endangered. And I welcome that this report sets something very important that we should have the follow-ups together with. In our next session, what have we done in all these areas that we mentioned so that our democracies in our member states are protected and that we are united and we have all necessary tools and policies for that. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Iasko. Madame Kravchuk, désirez-vous répondre au nom de la Commission de la culture, de la science, de l'éducation et des médias? Vous avez 3 minutes,
oui.
s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Thank you, dear colleagues. I do not need to give more details because Linda's report is very comprehensive and the position is very firm, strong, and we have a swift stand of this assembly. We have to show it, the swift stand of the assembly in favor of the ban of Russian and Belarusian athletes. And I would have to underline that after all the discussions we held in the Committee of Culture, Education, Media and Sport, at the end of the day, we received unanimous support for this report. And we have to show this unanimous support in this assembly as well. Of course, we had the discussions, as we had discussions here. But during these discussions, we found out that this sense of neutrality that IOC proposes doesn't work already. We already saw Russian sportsmen go into pre-championships, and they belong to army clubs. Already those who won were congratulated by Putin. After 2 hours, they were on the pedestal, saying this is the great sports school of judo or whatever sport was there. So this is a reality that we face. And also we need to give a wake-up call to IOC. Yes, they are completely independent in their decisions, but we cannot be silent. And we have to call to international federations, to national federations. Sportsmen are moral compass. They always were the authority. They were the people who young people would follow. They need to stand up, and I'm very thankful for the letter of these 600 sportsmen that called us to support the ban, because probably they do not want also to compete with Russian and Belarusian athletes on the same territory. So I really hope that our committee's unity will be here in the assembly. And just imagine, at this very same time, when we are discussing whether Russians and Belarusians should be in Olympics, there is a great hazard of nuclear attack in Zaporizhia. You probably saw, and some of the people said, and it's in the report of Emanuelis. Imagine the scale and how ruthless the war is still after 500 days. So please, on behalf of the committee, I ask you to support the resolution of Linda Helleland. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Kravchuk. La discussion générale est close. Nous en venons au premier rapport intitulé « Les conséquences politiques de l'agression de la Fédération de Russie contre l'Ukraine ». document 15 797. La Commission des questions politiques et de la démocratie a présenté un projet de résolution sur lequel 9 amendements ont été déposés. J'ai cru comprendre que la présidence de la Commission des questions politiques et de la démocratie souhaite proposer à l'Assemblée de considérer les amendements numéros 1, 2, 3, 5 et 8 qui ont été adoptés à l'unanimité par la Commission comme adoptés par l'Assemblée. Les amendements 7 et 9 ont également été adoptés à l'unanimité, mais comme ils font l'objet de sous-amendements oraux, nous les examinerons selon les modalités habituelles. Est-ce bien cela, Madame Iasko? Y a-t-il une objection? Ce n'est pas le cas. Donc, les amendements numéro 1, 2, 3, 5 et 8 sur le projet de résolution sont donc déclarés adoptés définitivement. Nous en venons à la discussion des autres amendements. Mes chers collègues, je vous rappelle que le temps d'intervention pour chaque amendement est limité à 30 secondes. J'ai en outre été informé par la présidence de la Commission des questions politiques et de la démocratie que l'amendement numéro 6 a été rejeté par la Commission à une majorité de 2 tiers des suffrages exprimés. Est-ce bien le cas, Madame Iasko?
Yes,
merci. Est-ce qu'il y a d'objections? Ce n'est pas le cas. Je considère l'amendement numéro 6 comme rejeté définitivement. Celle-là. La présidence a été saisie par M. Goncharenko de l'amendement oral suivant. À la fin du paragraphe 10, ajoutez la phrase suivante. L'Assemblée exprime sa plus grave préoccupation quant à la possibilité que la Fédération de Russie envisage de mener une attaque délibérée ou de provoquer un accident délibéré à la centrale nucléaire de Zaporizhia, comme l'a mentionné le président Zelensky le 22 juin. Cela risquerait de provoquer une escalade de la guerre et conduirait à une fuite de radiation aux conséquences dévastatrices pour l'Europe. En vertu de l'article 34.7a du règlement, le président peut, à titre exceptionnel, déclarer recevable un amendement oral ou un sous-amendement oral s'il estime qu'il est destiné à apporter une clarification, à tenir compte de faits nouveaux ou à permettre une conciliation. Je considère cet amendement oral comme recevable au regard des critères du règlement. Il ne peut toutefois être pris en compte si 10 représentants ou suppléants au moins s'y opposent et se lèvent. Y a-t-il des objections à la prise en compte de cet amendement oral? Ce n'est pas le cas. Nous allons donc procéder au vote sur l'amendement oral. Le scrutin est ouvert. Non?
On a lancé le vote.
C'est quoi?
Demandez la parole. Pour soutenir l'amendement.
OK. La parole est à M. Goncharenko pour soutenir l'amendement oral, s'il vous plaît.
Dear colleagues, it's very important. The fact is that after the committee already made decision on amendments, There was an urgent event happened. The President of Ukraine, Zelensky, announced today about the facts of Russia preparing a terroristic attack and explosion on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which is the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe, the third biggest in the world. That's an extremely dangerous situation, and we can't ignore it, especially when we are working on the consequences of this awful aggression. So that's why I propose this oral amendment, and I'm very thankful to Madam President that she supported it, that it could be now decided by our respected Assembly to support it or not. So now on the question of Mr. Katrougalas, I just want to repeat exactly how we propose, what is my proposition of oral amendment. At the end of paragraph 10, add the following sentence. The Assembly expresses its gravest concern that the Russian Federation may be planning to carry out a deliberate attack on or cause a deliberate accident at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, as mentioned by President Zelensky on 22nd of June. This would risk provoking an escalation in the war and lead to a radiation leak with devastating consequences for Europe. So that is the exact wording, and I ask everybody to support it. We need to react on such threats. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Goncharenko. Quelqu'un demande la parole contre l'amendement oral? Ce n'est pas le cas. Quel est l'avis de la Commission?
I'm extremely in favor, especially to the fact that it was new evidence. And looking to our internal rules, if we have new evidences, we can vote in favor. We can have voting for that. So I'm in favor. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Zingeris. Nous allons procéder au vote sur l'amendement oral. Le scrutin est ouvert. Le scrutin est clos. Je demande l'affichage du résultat. L'amendement oral est adopté. La parole est à M. Goncharenko pour soutenir l'amendement numéro 4.
Thank you very much. I think this is an extremely important amendment because it's speaking about nations colonized by Russia in North Caucasus, in other Chechens, Cherkessians, Ossetians, Tatari, Buryati, Kalmyki. Russia is the last colonial empire in Europe, and on our eyes, they are destroying the human rights of these people. In reality, they are doing genocide of these people, sending them to die to Ukraine, to kill Ukrainians and to die themselves. So we need to speak about this. And my amendment was not supported by the committee, just by several votes. And the rapporteur is in favor. So I want to ask all of you to support this amendment, saying that our assembly should support the rights of the colonized ethnic minorities in Russian Federation. We should do this. We should not put a blind eye on what Russia is doing with these nations. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Goncharenko. Quelqu'un demande la parole contre l'amendement? Monsieur, excusez-moi, mais c'est Monsieur Katrougalos. Monsieur Katrougalos, vous avez la parole.
Madame la President, the amendment is clearly out of the scope of the resolution, but above all is extremely dangerous and contrary to what we have decided till now as Council of Europe. It calls for self-determination of ethnicities within the Russian Federation. In other words, it asks for a dissolution of Russia, the breakup of Russia. This is butter to the bread of the Russian propaganda, which portrays exactly the war as a kind of effort of destroying Russia.
Merci beaucoup. Quel est l'avis de la Commission?
Rejected with a simple majority.
Donc, nous allons procéder au vote sur l'amendement. Le scrutin est ouvert.
C'est la Commission.
C'est la Commission. Le scrutin est clos. Je demande l'affichage du résultat si l'amendement n'est pas adopté.
Page 16.
La présidence a été saisie par M. Soboliev de l'amendement oral suivant. Au paragraphe 21.1, remplacer les mots des réfugiés ukrainiens par les mots des réfugiés et des personnes déplacées du fait de la guerre contre l'Ukraine. La procédure, c'est la même. En vertu de l'article 34.7a du règlement, le président peut, à titre sessionnel, déclarer recevable un amendement oral ou un sous-amendement oral s'il estime qu'il est destiné à apporter une clarification, à tenir compte des faits nouveaux ou à permettre une conciliation. Je considère cet amendement oral comme recevable au regard des critères du règlement. Il ne peut toutefois être pris en compte si 10 représentants ou suppléants au moins s'y opposent et se lèvent. Y a-t-il des objections à la prise en compte de cet amendement oral? Ce n'est pas le cas. La parole est à M. Soboliev pour soutenir l'amendement oral. Vous avez la parole, monsieur.
Thank you, Madam President. We just want to qualify this oral amendment in order to see how it's in our resolutions. According to previous resolutions, we have the same term as I proposed to our voting, because only a small part of Ukrainians are refugees. All others has different status that we can have according to this amendment. I want to support this amendment. Thank you.
Merci, M. Soboliev. Quelqu'un demande la parole contre l'amendement oral? Ce n'est pas le cas. Quel est l'avis de la Commission?
Unanimously approved.
Nous allons procéder au vote sur l'amendement oral. Le scrutin est ouvert. Le scrutin est clos. Je demande l'affichage du résultat. L'amendement oral est adopté. L'amendement numéro 7 fait l'objet d'un sous-amendement oral de la Commission. La parole est à M. Goncharenko pour soutenir l'amendement numéro 7. 30 secondes, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Madam President. That is about important thing which I spoke today, that yes, there are really good Russians, but it's not those people who are sitting in somewhere, hiding their money, Russian oligarchs who are saying they have nothing to do with what Putin is doing. But good Russians is those who are fighting against this war. Not so many, unfortunately, but they are. And one of them is Vladimir Kara-Murza. And he is illegally detained and tortured by the Russian regime. So the proposition is to add those who are responsible for these illegal actions against Vladimir Kara-Murza to be sanctioned. Thank you very much.
Merci, Monsieur Goncharenko. La présidence a été saisie par la Commission des questions politiques et de la démocratie suivant du sous-amendement oral suivant. L'amendement numéro 7 remplacer le mot poursuite par les mots poursuite arbitraire. Je considère ce sous-amendement recevable au regard des critères du règlement. Il ne peut toutefois être pris en compte si 10 représentants suppléants au moins s'y opposent et se lèvent. Y a-t-il des objections à la prise en compte de ce sous-amendement oral? Ce n'est pas le cas. Donc, la parole, nous allons donc examiner ce sous-amendement oral. La parole est à Monsieur le rapporteur pour soutenir le sous-amendement oral.
Yes, Madam Speaker, dear friends, it's very important to understand that our colleague and friend Vladimir Karamurza was arbitrarily sentenced and arbitrarily prosecuted. That's a crucial issue, while the court was ruled from above, from Kremlin. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Quelqu'un demande-t-il la parole contre le sous-amendement oral? Ce n'est pas le cas. Quel est l'avis de l'auteur de l'amendement, M. Goncharenko, sur le sous-amendement oral?
Certainly I support. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Et l'avis de la Commission est naturellement favorable. Nous allons procéder au vote sur le sous-amendement oral. Le scrutin est ouvert. Le scrutin est clos. Je demande l'affichage du résultat. Le sous-amendement oral est adopté. Nous en revenons à l'amendement numéro 7. Quelqu'un demande-t-il la parole contre l'amendement 7? Ainsi sous-amendé, bien sûr. Ce n'est pas le cas. Quel est l'avis de la Commission sur l'amendement ainsi sous-amendé?
Unanimously approved as sub-amendment.
Merci. Nous allons procéder au vote sur l'amendement numéro 7 ainsi sous-amendé. Le scrutin est ouvert. Le scrutin est clos. Je demande l'affichage du résultat. L'amendement numéro 7, ainsi sous-amendé, est adopté. L'amendement numéro 9 fait l'objet d'un sous-amendement oral de M. Fassino. La parole est à Mme Olena Komenko pour soutenir l'amendement numéro 9. 30 secondes, Madame.
Dear colleagues, the text of this amendment speaks by itself, and we all aware of and we are observing the inability of United Nations to counter Russian aggression against Ukraine, and the Assembly reiterates this concern that it expressed earlier in other resolutions, and we would like to support all efforts and discussions seeking to unblock this situation and to stop Russia abusing its veto power. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Komenko. La présidence a été saisie par M. Fassino du sous-amendement oral suivant. À l'amendement numéro 9, après les mots « quanta », supprimer les mots « l'incapacité des Nations Unies et du Conseil de sécurité de s'opposer à l'agression russe en raison de ». Je considère ce sous-amendement recevable au regard des critères du règlement. Il ne peut toutefois être pris en compte si 10 représentants ou suppléants au moins s'opposent et se lèvent. Y a-t-il des objections à la prise en compte de ce sous-amendement oral? Ce n'est pas le cas. Nous allons donc examiner ce sous-amendement oral. La parole est à M. Facine pour soutenir le sous-amendement oral. Micro.
Ok, excusez-moi. Je pense que ce n'est pas un bon choix que dans un texte d'une résolution du Conseil de l'Europe, on exprime une censure vers le Conseil des Nations Unies. C'est une interférence que je pense qu'il n'est pas utile. Donc ça, c'est la raison pour laquelle j'ai proposé de biffer les lignes que le président a lues. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, M. Facine. Quelqu'un demande-t-il la parole contre le sous-amendement oral? M. Zingeris, vous avez la parole. 30 secondes.
Just a moment, I need 1 second consultation. So I remember our discussion in the committee, it was supported in favor of our Italian colleague amendment, yes.
Je n'ai pas encore demandé quel est l'avis de la Commission. J'ai demandé s'il y a quelqu'un qui est contre le sous-amendement oral. Est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un demande-t-il la parole contre le sous-amendement oral? Ce n'est pas le cas. Quel est l'avis de l'auteur de l'amendement sur le sous-amendement oral? Madame Komenko, vous avez la parole.
I support this sub-amendment. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Quel est l'avis de la Commission?
Anonymously approved as sub-amendment.
Merci beaucoup. Nous allons procéder au vote sur le sous-amendement oral. Le scrutin est ouvert. Le scrutin est clos. Je demande l'affichage du résultat. Le sous-amendement oral est adopté. Nous en revenons à l'amendement numéro 9. Quelqu'un demande-t-il la parole contre l'amendement 9, ainsi sous-amendé? Ce n'est pas le cas. Quel est l'avis de la Commission sur l'amendement ainsi sous-amendé? Micro, s'il vous plaît.
Yeah, it is approved as sub-amended.
Merci. Nous allons procéder au vote sur l'amendement numéro 9, ainsi sous-amendé. Le scrutin est ouvert. Le scrutin est clos. Je demande l'affichage du résultat. L'amendement numéro 9, ainsi sous-amendé, est adopté. On va voter le projet de résolution. La majorité simple est requise. Nous allons procéder au vote. J'ai déjà dit. Le scrutin est ouvert. Le scrutin est clos. Je demande l'affichage du résultat. Le projet de résolution contenu dans le document 15 797 amendé est adopté. Nous en venons au second rapport intitulé « Guerre d'agression contre l'Ukraine, participation des athlètes russes et biélorusses aux Jeux olympiques et paralympiques de Paris 2024, document 15 795. La Commission de la culture, de la science, de l'éducation et des médias a présenté un projet de résolution sur lequel 3 amendements ont été déposés. J'ai cru comprendre que la présidente de la Commission de la culture, de la science, de l'éducation et des médias souhaite proposer à l'Assemblée de considérer les amendements numéros 2 et 3 qui ont été adoptés à l'unanimité par la Commission comme adoptés par l'Assemblée. Est-ce bien le cas, Madame la Présidente?
Yes, that's the case.
Merci. Y a-t-il une objection? Ce n'est pas le cas. Il n'y a pas d'objection. Les amendements numéro 2 et 3 sur le projet de résolution sont donc déclarés adoptés définitivement. Nous en venons à la discussion du dernier amendement. Mes chers collègues, je vous rappelle que le temps d'intervention est limité à 30 secondes. Amendement numéro 1. J'ai cru comprendre que M. Oleksiy Goncharenko souhaite retirer l'amendement numéro 1 au profit d'un amendement oral de conciliation de la Commission. C'est bien le cas, M. Goncharenko?
Sorry, Madam President, may you repeat your question?
Souhaitez-vous retirer l'amendement numéro 1 au profit d'un amendement oral de conciliation de la Commission?
Yes, sure, absolutely. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Quelqu'un d'autre souhaite soutenir l'amendement? Ce n'est pas le cas. Quelqu'un demande la parole contre l'amendement? Ah, okay. On passe à l'amendement oral. La présidence a été saisie par Mme Eleland de l'amendement oral suivant. Dans le projet de résolution, à la fin du paragraphe 8, après le mot « propagande », insérez les mots suivants, créant ainsi un récit d'acceptation et de normalisation qui minimiserait la gravité des actes commis par les gouvernements russes et bélarussiens. En vertu de l'article 34.7.a du règlement, le président peut, à titre exceptionnel, déclarer recevable un amendement oral ou un sous-amendement oral s'il estime qu'il est destiné à apporter une clarification, à tenir compte de faits nouveaux ou à permettre une conciliation. Je considère cet amendement oral comme recevable au regard des critères du règlement. Il ne peut toutefois être pris en compte si 10 représentants ou suppléants au moins s'y opposent et se lèvent. Y a-t-il des objections à la prise en compte de cet amendement oral? Ce n'est pas le cas. La parole est à Madame la rapporteure pour soutenir l'amendement oral.
Yes, I support that oral amendment.
Merci beaucoup. Quelqu'un demande la parole contre l'amendement oral? Ce n'est pas le cas. Quel est l'avis de la Commission?
Unanimously in favor.
Merci beaucoup. Nous allons procéder au vote sur l'amendement oral. Le scrutin est ouvert. Le scrutin est clos. Je demande l'affichage du résultat. L'amendement oral est adopté. Nous allons procéder au vote sur le projet de résolution contenu dans le document 15 795 amendé. Une majorité simple est requise. Le scrutin est ouvert. Le scrutin est clos. Je demande l'affichage du résultat. Le projet de résolution contenu dans le document 15 795 amendé est adopté. Okay.
The next item on the agenda is the debate on the report titled Ensuring Free and Safe Access to the Lachin Corridor. You find it in document 15796, presented by Mr. Paul Gavin on behalf of the Migration, Refugees and Displaced Persons Committee. In order could we leave the first row now to Rapporteur Gavin? Manuelis, could we have the first row for the next rapporteur? In order to finish by 8 p.m., I will interrupt the list of speakers at about... This is not correct.
No, change it.
I will have to interrupt the list of speakers, so not everybody will be able to participate in order to allow time for the reply and vote on the draft resolution. Please, ladies, please, gentlemen, would you clear the first row? I now call Mr. Paul Gavin, Rapporteur.
Thank you very much.
You have 7 minutes, Paul. Sorry, but we had some traffic conjunction, is called like that. I call Rapporteur Mr. Paul Gavin. You have 7 minutes now, Paul, and 3 minutes for reply at the end of the debate. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues. Firstly, I want to begin by saying what this report is not about. It's not about the wider political situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan. I've been given a very specific mandate to talk about the Lachin Corridor, and that is what I focused on in this report. I also need to briefly talk about terminology because a number of amendments seek to remove the term Nagorno-Karabakh. I oppose these amendments because the term Nagorno-Karabakh has always been used in all previous reports and indeed is being used currently by the Monitoring Committee, and I believe my report should be consistent in this regard. So, colleagues, I was asked by my committee to investigate the issue of free and safe access through the Lachin Corridor. The committee recommended that I visit both Armenia and Azerbaijan, and crucially, that I travel through the Lachin Corridor to see for myself. While I was able to visit Armenia, I was regrettably not invited to Azerbaijan, and I was denied access through the Lachin Corridor. Now, there's no small irony in this event, given that the government of Azerbaijan has consistently insisted that there's no problem accessing the corridor. I could not get access. Colleagues, the key finding of my report is that there is neither free nor safe access through the Lachin Corridor. And indeed, this is in line with the judgment of the International Court of Justice and indeed the interim measures from our own court here in Strasbourg. So why do I say this? Well, because this is the clear message that I've consistently received from people living in Nagorno-Karabakh, from NGOs operating and working with people exiled from Karabakh, from senior medical staff at the hospital in Stepanakert/Kankendi, who explained that the only way that patients are being transferred to Armenia is through the corridor was via the ICRC, and that this method has been shut down now completely for over a week and was also shut down for a number of weeks in April and May. Colleagues, please think about this. How can Azerbaijan tell us there's free and safe access through the Lachin Corridor when they themselves admit that hospital patients have to use the services of the ICRC to travel? How can this be described as free access? So, the lack of access has been the case since the 12th of December last, when a group of so-called eco-activists set up a blockade on the Lachin Corridor, apparently making claims of illegal mining. I say so-called eco-activists because, in fact, many of these environmental protesters have been identified as members of the Azerbaijan military with government backing. Some of them are members of the Grey Wolves, an extreme fascist group, and all of this has been documented in the British Parliament by a Conservative MP, Tim Loughton, on the 24th of January of this year. Colleagues, there is a growing humanitarian crisis in Nagorno-Karabakh, and the current situation is simply not sustainable for the local population. The crisis manifests itself in many ways: enforced family separation, enforced isolation of an entire community, and the fear and panic that that engenders. Access to food, access to medicines, access to medical care, access to education. Schools were closed for months during the winter because of the inability to heat them. And this was due to the deliberate cutting off of electricity and gas to the region. Electricity cut off since the 9th of January, gas cut off on several occasions, and then indefinitely since the 21st of March. So the only means of travel was for people who were sick, and that was through the ICRC, but that has been completely shut down now. So I want you to take a moment to imagine the situation that community finds itself in, cut off and to their minds forgotten by the international community. And then there is the hate speech which comes from the very highest levels of the Azerbaijan government. President Aliyev himself has referred to the population of Nagorno-Karabakh as the contemptible, loathsome and hated enemy. He also made a speech in Lachin itself just a couple of weeks ago, and he sent this message to his Armenian neighbours. He said, "Let them know that we can see Armenian villages from here. We can see those villages, so they should not forget about that." And one further example, the Foreign Affairs Committee in the Azerbaijan Parliament actually referred to the Armenian diaspora as a cancer on the body politic of Europe. Colleagues, please, I hope we can all agree that this language is entirely unacceptable. So, my report makes a number of key recommendations. We should open the Lachin Corridor, and we need to see it open, and we need all parties to abide by the trilateral agreement. Crucially, we need a fact-finding mission to Nagorno-Karabakh. This is really the elephant in the room, and it's a particularly large elephant. No one, I can't get access through Lachin, but neither can our Human Rights Commissioner, neither can the UNHCR, neither can UNESCO. I have to ask the question, what is it that Azerbaijan are afraid that we will see? I call for gas and electricity to be restored immediately. I call on both countries to work with the Council of Europe to adopt key protocols re the protection of minorities, i.e. the Framework Convention for National Minorities, and a Charter for Protection of Minority and Regional Languages. Colleagues, to conclude, the current situation is simply not sustainable. There's actually been no access for food or medicines or anything for over a week now. We know the corridor is blocked. I'm saying that to you, having done as much thorough research as I can, and without being able to access the Lachin Corridor because that was denied. As we head towards the winter, they're expecting more power cuts. They're literally running out of the ability to produce any energy because the hydroelectric dam they have is now running out of water. The situation is not sustainable. A human rights crisis is developing and continues to worsen. We need the support of this entire Assembly, and I ask Azerbaijan and Armenia to do everything in their power to address this situation, to help those people on a humanitarian basis and build a better future for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rapporteur. In the debate, we now are going to listen to the speakers on behalf of the political groups. And first in the debate, I call Madam Elisabetta Gardini from Italy, speaking on behalf of the European Conservative Group. Elisabetta, you have the floor.
Sì, grazie Presidente. Cari colleghi, noi oggi parliamo di un'area, il Caucaso, che è un crocevia strategico in termini di connettività globale. È una regione con un potenziale incredibile che può però essere realizzato appieno solo con una reale cooperazione tra Armenia e Azerbaigian. Da un lato siamo incoraggiati dall'intensificazione dei contatti tra le parti e, come evidenzia anche la risoluzione, accogliamo con favore il reciproco riconoscimento dell'integrità territoriale da parte dell'Armenia e dell'Azerbaigian. È sicuramente un primo passo importante verso la soluzione di un conflitto che perdura ormai da troppo tempo. Tale riconoscimento dovrebbe permettere alle popolazioni di vivere in pace e sicurezza all'interno dei propri confini. Però in questo momento Come è stato ricordato, siamo tutti molto preoccupati per la situazione nel corridoio di Lachin. Abbiamo seguito con attenzione le notizie relative agli sviluppi sul terreno, nonché il dibattito di questi giorni in Commissione. Siamo consapevoli quindi che ci troviamo di fronte a due narrative contrapposte. Al riguardo non possiamo non ricordare che in base all'accordo tripartito del 2020 il corridoio dovrebbe essere controllato da un contingente di peacekeeping della Federazione Russa e che proprio in virtù di questo accordo Mosca ha assunto nuovamente un ruolo geopolitico importante nell'area. Del resto, i persistenti scontri che hanno causato per entrambi i popoli migliaia di vittime e di rifugiati destano da sempre grandi preoccupazioni nella comunità internazionale e rappresentano il principale ostacolo alla pace e alla stabilità dell'area, agevolando mire espansionistiche da parte di attori terzi che potrebbero anteporre i loro interessi economici e politici al benessere e alla pace dell'area. Ricordiamo in ogni caso che il corridoio di Lachin deve consentire il passaggio della popolazione e dei beni, ma non deve essere assolutamente usato per scopi militari. Ci aspettiamo dunque che entrambi i paesi aumentino gli sforzi verso una de-escalation delle tensioni, con un atteggiamento costruttivo volto a favorire una convivenza realmente pacifica, sulla base del rispetto dei principi internazionali contenuti nella Carta delle Nazioni Unite, della sovranità e dell'integrità territoriale e più in generale del divieto dell'uso della forza armata nelle relazioni internazionali. Auspichiamo che i colloqui che dovrebbero tenersi la settimana prossima a Washington diano risultati incoraggianti, così come sosteniamo la missione UE di osservazione sul terreno EUMA e l'azione di facilitazione europea volta a favore di una soluzione complessiva. Consentitemi anche da italiana di ricordare che la mia nazione vanta storici e importanti rapporti sia con l'Azerbaigian che con l'Armenia e in virtù di tali solidi legami con entrambe le parti l'Italia è davvero motivata a promuovere il tanto atteso percorso di normalizzazione e stabilizzazione della regione. Analogamente, signor Presidente, noi ci auguriamo che questa Assemblea sostenga con tutti gli strumenti a disposizione questo processo di normalizzazione dei rapporti tra l'Armenia e l'Azerbaigian, due paesi, due popoli che ci stanno a cuore e che hanno tutto il diritto di vivere in sicurezza e in pace. Grazie.
Grazie, Elisabetta. Next in the debate, I call Mr. George Lukaitis from Cyprus on behalf of the Unified European Left Group. George.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, I wish to thank our rapporteur, Paul Gavan, for his accurate and thus impartial report. We fully support the findings and the recommendations made by Mr. Gavan and hope that this report is given serious consideration in order to guarantee human rights and ensure conditions of peace and security for the people of Nagorno-Karabakh. The current blockade of the Lachin Corridor is putting thousands of people's lives at risk, forcing them to live in conditions of acute shortages in food, medicine, and fuel, and impairing their access to healthcare and education. These circumstances, dear colleagues, are creating the danger for ethnic cleansing, as the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh are driven to abandon the area and their homes. Mr. Gavan's recent visit to Armenia was valuable in assessing the situation on the ground, and it is regrettable that he was not invited to likewise visit Azerbaijan. The country's leadership should acknowledge the humanitarian consequences and the serious human rights violations resulting from the current situation and allow PACE and other international bodies, such as the Red Cross, UNHCR and UNESCO, to visit the Lachin Corridor and Nagorno-Karabakh the soonest. In addition, it is vital to fully respect the terms of the trilateral statement signed in 2020 and comply with relevant decisions of the European Court of Human Rights and the International Court of Justice, calling for the restoration of freedom of movement in the Lachin Corridor and removing all barriers to the provision of essential commodities. The situation currently developing is a reflection of the complex and long-lasting conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia over Nagorno-Karabakh, which requires a permanent and peaceful political solution. At present, both nations need to engage in constructive dialogue through the ongoing negotiations under the auspices of the European Union and the United States of America. Dear colleagues, confidence-building measures and further concrete initiatives should be welcomed, including assistance and support offered by the Council of Europe to foster cooperation on issues of mutual concern. Of course, the first step is the immediate restoration of free and safe access through the Lachin Corridor, the de-escalation of tensions, and the elimination of any imminent risk of facing another catastrophic humanitarian crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Next in the debate, I call Mr. Stefan Schenach from Austria on behalf of the group of the Socialists, Democrats and Greens. Stefan?
Danke sehr, Herr Präsident. Es ist ja immer sehr bedauerlich, wenn im Schatten großer Konflikte wie der Krieg in der Ukraine kleine Probleme im Windschatten sich entwickeln. Gerade die ganze Region Bergkarabach ist doch eine Situation, die seit Jahrzehnten brodelt. Nicht nur Bergkarabach, sondern auch die anderen 7 illegal seinerzeit besetzten Gebiete, die jetzt wieder zurück sind in Aserbaidschan. Umso mehr sollte eigentlich Aserbaidschan hier großzügig sein, denn immerhin hat dieses Abkommen, dieses Friedensabkommen, das 3 Präsidenten unterzeichnet haben, die Präsidenten von Aserbaidschan, Armenien und Russland, am 10.11.2020 dazu gebracht, dass Kriegsgefangene und Tote ausgetauscht werden, dass es eine Bodentruppe, russische Friedenstruppe für 5 Jahre gibt und dass es eben 2 sogenannte Zugänge gibt. Und eine ist zu Nagorno-Karabach und die andere Verbindung zur Enklave Nachitschewan, die ja auch abgetrennt ist. Das wäre alles gut so und es hat auch eine Zeit funktioniert. Es sind Konvois durch die Enklave gefahren, die von russischen Friedenstruppen begleitet wurden und dann kam es, wie es kommen musste. Das war Mitte Dezember 2022, dass verkleidete Ökoaktivisten hier die Straße sperrten. Umgekehrt haben dann die russischen Friedenstruppen, damit dieser Konflikt nicht wieder ausartet, ihrerseits gesperrt. Und seither haben wir ein humanitäres Desaster, nämlich Nahrungsmittel, Medikamente, Energie, Dienstleistungen, Familienzusammenführung, all das ist unterbrochen. Und die humanitäre Hilfe, die das Rote Kreuz und die russischen Friedenstruppen leisten, reicht bei Weitem nicht aus. Das ist ein Gebiet, wo 130.000 Menschen leben und circa 30.000 Kinder. Und jetzt muss ich an die aserische Delegation appellieren. Niemand stellt in Zweifel, dass Nagorno-Karabach Teil des Staatsgebietes Aserbaidschan ist. Aber sie haben auch eine Verantwortung für das Leben dort. Und der Internationale Gerichtshof der Vereinten Nationen hat in diesem Jahr gesagt, es muss wiederum die Enklave befahrbar sein. Ich appelliere auch hier, die Stromausfälle, die Gasstoppungen, all das muss aufhören. Die defekte Hochspannungsleitung bei denen muss endlich die Reparatur erlaubt sein. In diesem Sinne appelliere ich an die aserische Delegation, hier im Sinne humanitärer Einstellung großzügig zu sein. Danke.
Dankeschön, Stefan. Next in the debate, I call Mr. Birger Torrarinsson from Iceland, and Birger speaks on behalf of the European People's Party. Birger.
Mr. President, I would like to thank the rapporteur, Mr. Gavin, for his excellent work under difficult circumstances. He has shown great will in monitoring the grave situation, despite the obstructions he had met in his work. The rapporteur has emphasized neutrality in all his work, and I find that to be of great value. The ongoing blockade by Azerbaijan of the Lachin Corridor, the lifeline to the people of Nagorno-Karabakh, has put the entire population in a state of total isolation for the last 6 months. Critical infrastructure of Nagorno-Karabakh has also been deliberately disrupted: national gas, electricity, and mobile communication. For the last 10 days, no food, no medicine or other goods allowed from the outside world, and citizens in need of urgent medical assistance are not allowed to pass through. Mr. President, this is totally unacceptable. These actions of Azerbaijan are a clear violation of the November 2020 agreement which the President of Azerbaijan has signed, and violation of binding decision of the European Convention of Human Rights and International Court of Justice. The ones that are suffering are innocent people. What would Azerbaijan do if they were facing blockade by themselves? The people of Nagorno-Karabakh are no different than other people, no different than the people of Azerbaijan, no different than us parliamentarians. They want to live a normal life. Mr. President, the rapporteur was denied access to the very important information, denied access to Nagorno-Karabakh, denied access to Azerbaijan. That brings up questions. What is the status of Azerbaijan within the Council of Europe? Are they not willing to take part in the important monitoring obligations on behalf of the Council of Europe? Does this mean that Azerbaijan is no longer committed to the Council of Europe? I do not wish for that, and I hope that Azerbaijan will change its course and start showing that they have nothing to hide. Start showing real humanity to the neighbors. Start showing that they care for the needs of innocent people. Mr. President, I call on Azerbaijan to ensure free and safe access to the lifeline to the people of Nagorno-Karabakh and lift the blockade immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Birger. Prochain orateur est M. Bertrand Bouix de la France au nom du groupe ADLE. Bertrand, la parole est à vous.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Chers collègues, ce débat est très important, nous ne le dirons jamais assez. Le corridor de Lachin est une ligne de vie pour la population du Haut-Karabakh. Cette voie reliant le territoire à l'Arménie permet l'accès et les approvisionnements du Haut-Karabakh. Conformément à la déclaration trilatérale du 9 novembre 2020, la République d'Azerbaïdjan s'est engagée à garantir la sécurité des déplacements des personnes, des véhicules et des marchandises le long du corridor de Lachin dans les deux directions. La Cour internationale de justice a rappelé l'Azerbaïdjan à ses obligations en termes clairs dans sa décision du 22 février dernier. Je cite, « La République d'Azerbaïdjan doit, conformément aux obligations qui lui incombent au titre de la Convention internationale sur l'élimination de toutes les formes de discrimination raciale, prendre toutes les mesures dont elle dispose afin d'assurer la circulation sans entrave des personnes, des véhicules et des marchandises le long du corridor de Lachin dans les deux sens. Notre institution, fondée sur la démocratie et l'état de droit, ne peut que soutenir cette formulation et demander instamment sa mise en œuvre sans condition. Il faut mettre fin au blocage illégal du corridor, c'est un préalable. Pour autant, nous sommes conscients qu'au-delà de la question humaine et même humanitaire, il s'agit d'abord et avant tout d'une question politique à régler. Notre groupe ADLE soutient toutes les initiatives qui vont vers un règlement d'un conflit qui n'a que trop duré. En marge du sommet de la communauté politique européenne à Chisinau, le 1er juin dernier, et à l'initiative de la France, le Premier ministre arménien Nikol Pachinian et le président azerbaïdjanais Ilham Aliyev se sont réunis autour du président de la République française Emmanuel Macron, du chancelier allemand Olaf Scholz et du président du Conseil européen Charles Michel. Une nouvelle réunion aura lieu à Bruxelles le 21 juillet. Notre partenaire américain déploie aussi des efforts de médiation. Nous devons nous coordonner étroitement, il me semble que nous avançons. Le Premier ministre Nikol Pachinian a eu effectivement récemment une expression d'apaisement. Nous espérons que cette main tendue sera saisie à bas coût. Le groupe ADLE met également en garde contre le jeu trouble de la Russie dans la zone. La Russie, qui s'est posée comme médiateur traditionnel entre l'Arménie et l'Azerbaïdjan, mais dont on connaît désormais la méthode qui consiste à maintenir les conflits ouverts pour saisir le moment venu des opportunités de gain territorial. C'est la raison pour laquelle il faut faire de ce conflit une urgence. La liberté doit être garantie à tous, population azerbaïdjanaise, mais également arménienne, quel que soit son lieu de résidence. J'appelle donc les pays de notre continent à un engagement fort pour régler ce conflit. Je vous remercie.
Merci à vous, Bertrand. Dear colleagues, I deplore that I have to announce that I now can only give 4 more colleagues the floor due to the enormous amount of amendments that have been presented in the committee. Sorry for that, but we have to vote. That means that in, say, 12 minutes we will start with the vote. First in the debate now I call Madam Christiana Erotokritou from Cyprus. Christiana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, first of all, I would like to congratulate the rapporteur, Mr. Paul Gavin, whose meticulous work, although impeded and unjustly hindered, as is explained in his report, as he was not able to travel to the Lachin Corridor, has not managed to prevent him from accurately finding facts and producing this excellent report. It is inconceivable for a member state of this organization not to allow a rapporteur to visit its territory on a fact-finding mission. What would the Council of Europe become if every member state refused entry in their territories of rapporteurs on fact-finding missions? We are here, dear colleagues, to uphold our values of democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. These values cannot be upheld if any of us are afraid of the truth, try to hide the truth, manipulate the truth, or all of the above. I am deeply alarmed by the contents of this report, particularly by reading in paragraph 71 that children in Nagorno-Karabakh are in essence denied access to healthcare, that additionally children in hospital had to be gathered in one ward to keep them warm, regardless of their illness due to power cuts. I was alarmed to read that adequate nutrition for children is a pressing problem. I was alarmed, dear colleagues, to read in paragraph 53 that access to food, hygiene, healthcare, medicine and education have affected Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh, and that on top of what in essence constitutes an economic blockade, they are receiving threats from people masqueraded as eco-activists. The aim of this is clearly to force all Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh to abandon and flee their ancestral homes in order to achieve ethnic cleansing. As it is rightly pointed out in the report, the Council of Europe and its member states must use all possible leverage to ensure that the commitments undertaken by Azerbaijan when it joined the organization are fulfilled. The standards of democracy, human rights and the rule of law must be respected in order to alleviate the suffering of Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh. The Council of Europe has the tools to ensure that all member states don't just pay lip service to our values of democracy, human rights and the rule of law, but actually practice them. Thank you.
Thank you, Christiana. Next speaker will be Mr. Ruben Rubinian from Armenia. Ruben.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, dear colleagues. It's ironic that the rapporteur on ensuring free and safe access through the Lachin Corridor wasn't ensured free and safe access through the Lachin Corridor, isn't it? And indeed, this is not a coincidence. For months, the people of Nagorno-Karabakh have been under blockade. And for more than a week, they have been under a complete siege, because if before there was still a possibility to send some humanitarian aid, basic food, and medical equipment to Nagorno-Karabakh through the International Red Cross, now it's completely impossible. Moreover, 2 hours ago, when we were debating the amendments in the committee, Azerbaijan was installing concrete barriers in the beginning of the Lachin Corridor. So now it's closed off physically and permanently. And of course, our Azerbaijani colleagues are going to deny it again. We are used to this, but I am very happy that at last the Council of Europe, the Parliamentary Assembly, has been able to verify the situation on the ground. And I want to thank Mr. Gavan for his words. And I confirm all his words, or rather he confirms all our words. Dear colleagues, we have to understand why this is happening. And I think it's not hard to understand. On one side, we have a government which is sieging a whole people, cutting the electricity supply, the gas flow, not allowing any access to these people to the outside world. On the other hand, we have a government which names these people as the loathsome enemy, cancer, which calls them to leave. Well, we have seen things like this happening in the history of Europe, of this continent as well. We all know how it ends. We all know how it ends when a government calls a group of people very different things, negative things, and which confines them in small territories. And we have to stop this. Speaking of Armenians being called the cancerous tumor of Europe, as Mr. Gavan mentioned. Well, Mr. Gavan, the chair of this Committee of Foreign Affairs of the Azerbaijani Parliament is here with us actually today. It's Mr. Samat Seidov. Let's hear him after this, why he called us the cancerous tumor of Europe. Let's hear his justification for calling Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh and everywhere the cancerous tumor of Europe. But of course, he is going to deny everything. But Mr. Seidov, I think you may not even bother to come up with a speech. I think George Orwell came up with a speech for you in his 1984 book. You can just stand up and say, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben. Next in the debate, I call Mr. Caspar van den Berg from the Netherlands. Caspar.
Dear Chair, first of all, many thanks to Rapporteur Mr. Gavan for his excellent work on the report. The Dutch Liberal Party acknowledges that conflicts between two states that are both member states of the Council of Europe are sensitive issues in this House. The Armenian-Azerbaijan conflict is one of them. Yet, at this moment, when the humanitarian situation affecting the people of Nagorno-Karabakh is dire, my party strongly supports the need for this conflict to be addressed in this Parliamentary Assembly in unequivocal terms. Free and safe access through the Lachin Corridor is vital to the people of Nagorno-Karabakh for humanitarian, medical and economic reasons. Moreover, the current blockade forms a potential danger for escalation of the conflict in the future. Therefore, the current obstruction of the Lachin Corridor is a very concerning matter for the Dutch Liberal Party. We are glad that the issue is on the EU's agenda by way of the leadership of the President of the Council, Charles Michel, who is playing an active role in the matter, and we fully support the EU's mediation efforts. My party remains decisively committed to finding a settlement to this conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan through negotiations. All efforts should be directed at de-escalation and in time at bringing back peace, stability and trust between the peoples of Armenia and Azerbaijan, however far removed we are from that state right now. And in the meantime, we want to stress that both parties are individually responsible for their own actions and need to be accountable for those actions. Azerbaijan should be accountable for its blocking of the corridor and for its detainment of prisoners of war. Azerbaijan's actions go against the values of this organization and are causing great suffering in the region. At the same time, we also take note of Armenia's role, where it appears to allow to circumvent sanctions currently in place, Russia to circumvent sanctions currently in place. For instance, in the field of certain categories of electronics that are key to making modern weapons. In a time when Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine is threatening the core values of the Council of Europe and the whole European multilateral order, sanction evasion on either side of the conflict has to stop, or it will jeopardize foreign commitment to mediation efforts in this conflict as well. Thank you.
Thank you well, Caspar. Last speaker in this debate will be Mr. Samat Seidov from Azerbaijan. Samat.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. How united those who try to disrupt the peace. First time in the history of the region, two nations are so close to each other. Two nations are looking for peace. And they have done actually a lot in order to reach this peace. But with this kind of discussion, I think that would be not so easy. This is really counterproductive to those who are living in the region. Mr. Havan said at the very beginning that his report not about politics, his report about the humanitarian questions. But he started from the political point. He said that Nagorno-Karabakh is included as a terminology in his report, which is exactly political point, because there is not Nagorno-Karabakh, there is a Karabakh region of Azerbaijan, independent Azerbaijan, which accepted to the Council of Europe as an independent state, and this is put under suspicion the integrity of the country. You are fighting against that. I ask my colleagues, dear friends, you have heard a lot of accusations against Azerbaijan. Have you ever seen even one picture of starving children in Karabakh? No, that's impossible, because this is propaganda from Mr. Rubinyan. Have you ever seen that Red Cross didn't have access to the region? No, never, because they have full access to the region. Have you ever seen that those who are living in Nagorno-Karabakh or those who are living in Azerbaijan, they're against of negotiations? No. The parliament of Azerbaijan has accepted the special representative in order to communicate with Armenians. This is our citizens. But by accusing me, by accusing Azerbaijan, by complaining to the Council of Europe, by begging to international organizations, Armenians run out from negotiations. You know why? The answer is obvious. They wanted to speak about the peace, but they don't want to achieve the peace. They want just only to demonstrate their intentions because of these problems, of this pain. They're sitting at the parliament. They are so acceptable. They are so heard. They are able to present their positions. And that's why, Mr. Havan, you are not sincere. You have been in Azerbaijan in 21. You went to Karabakh. You've been in Aghdam region. You saw with your own eyes what they did against Azerbaijanis. And I ask you during your visit to Azerbaijan, please reflect in your report Ganja, which destroyed by Armenian rockets. Please accept that Barda city completely destroyed during the war by Armenians. And you promised me. You said, I will do that. And then you said, no. I am not able to do that. And then, with all this knowledge, you again became a rapporteur and tried to present Azerbaijan in that manner. That's not fair. We are for Armenians, we for peace, and we will achieve peace, despite of this kind of accusations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As I announced, due to the large amount of amendments presented, I deplore that I now have already to interrupt the list of speakers. Speeches of members on the speakers list who have been present during the debate but have not been able to speak may be given to the table office for publication in the official report. I remind colleagues that typewritten text must be submitted electronically no later than 4 hours after the list of speakers is interrupted. I now call Mr. Gavin, the rapporteur, to reply. Paul, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I regret I have to begin with an urgent update that I have received just in the last 20 minutes from the EU Monitoring Commission at the Lachin Corridor. And they confirm that this afternoon, Azerbaijan have installed concrete blocks, obstacles of approximately knee height across both lines of the road, so it is not possible to pass on the road by vehicle. They installed them behind the permanent Azerbaijan checkpoint, the green tent. On a day when we're debating this issue, to hear that news is frankly incredibly depressing. And it really flies in the face of a lot of very positive comments, and I want to thank all of the speakers, because I think there has to be a roadmap to solve this. There has to be a positive response that will solve this issue. And of course it must involve the Council of Europe. It must involve access. Access. Mr. Sayedov said on Monday in a very positive speech, he said, come to the region. But he didn't allow me to come. And he didn't allow anyone yet to come through the Lachin Corridor. Isn't that at the heart of this issue? The humanitarian crisis that we are facing, I believe, is extremely serious. People have not been able to access any food or supplies over the last week. There are massive issues, as has been pointed out by speakers, in terms of health and welfare for children. They're facing into prolonged power cuts. They're facing into a winter that, frankly, I can't see how they can manage. And the only conclusion I can come to, and it's a matter of deep regret that I have to come to this conclusion, it looks as though, unless things change, that the intention is to force the Armenian population of Nagorno-Karabakh in Azerbaijan to leave. And surely that just cannot be acceptable to any of us. Colleagues, I just want to briefly mention the amendments. As you see, there's quite a few of them. I want to ask for your support in relation to 4, 7, 11 and 46. But I have to say to you, the rest of the amendments are of such a fundamentally different character. If they're passed, they will change the nature of this report entirely. So if they are passed, in those circumstances, I'll actually call on you to vote against the report. I still have to hope that together, acting in unity, we can give a strong message of solidarity in terms of the humanitarian crisis that is facing and growing daily and weekly in the Nagorno-Karabakh region because, and I reiterate this, the Lachin Corridor is closed. And I once again call on our colleagues from Azerbaijan to reopen the corridor, to reconnect the gas and electricity, to get engaged in constructive dialogue, and I call on Armenia to do the same, so that we can all move forward together. Please support the report. Please reject these amendments that are going to fundamentally change the character of what I've written. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rapporteur. Does Mr. Goncharenko, on behalf of the Committee on Migration, wish to speak? Alexei, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. On behalf of Committee on Migration, Refugees and Displaced People, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Gavin, Rapporteur, for a very important and courageous report. Also, I would like to thank Secretariat of the Committee for all work done. And also, I would like to thank all members of our committee. Today we had a long and big debates, and I think they were fruitful, so I want to thank everybody for this. The most important thing which I want to mention is that there are important negotiations between Armenia and Azerbaijan going on, and the fact that both countries recognized each other's territorial integrity is already a huge progress, and that's the most important. And we all want to see peace in this region, and that is so important for all of us. And the draft and resolution and recommendation that you are asked to adopt today, they can provide a real roadmap for our organization precisely to support the building of trust between Armenia and Azerbaijan with a view to ensuring a lasting peace. So I want to ask on behalf of Migration Committee to everybody to support the report. Also, what I want to tell you that our aim is really to have a peace, and we hope that it will happen. And we know that there is one country which wants the war. This is aggressor, former member of our organization, Russian Federation, and our aim is to ensure that we will have strong peace in all countries of Council of Europe and in general in our region. Thank you very much, and again, thanks to the Rapporteur.
Thank you very much, Alexei. The debate is closed. The Migration, Refugees and Displaced Persons Committee has presented a draft resolution which you find in document 15796, to which 55 amendments have been tabled, and a draft recommendation which you find in document 15796, to which 7 amendments have been tabled. We will begin first with amendments to the draft resolution which were unanimously agreed. I understand that the representative of the Committee on Migration, Refugees and Displaced Persons wishes to propose to the Assembly that amendment number 11 to the draft resolution, which was adopted unanimously by the committee, should be declared as agreed by the Assembly. Is that so, Mr. Goncharenko?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Does anybody object? I do not see any. Then the amendment is agreed. We will now consider amendments to the draft resolution which were rejected by a 2/3 majority. I understand that the representative of the Committee on Migration, Refugees and Displaced Persons wishes to propose to the Assembly that amendments 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12 until 45, including 45, 47 until 55, including 55, to the draft resolution, which were rejected by the committee with a 2/3 majority, be declared as rejected. Is that so, Mr. Goncharenko?
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection against this proposal? Mr. Sadov.
Mr. President, we have an objection. We think that these amendments should be discussed despite of the result which we got at the level of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Sadov. In this case, if there is an objection, I have to ask if this objection must be supported by at least 10 members. Who is objecting? I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Is that correct? 12, 13. That means that the amendments will be debated. I now call Mr. Sadov to support amendment number 4. You have 30 seconds.
Then again, can you repeat amendment number?
Amendment number 4.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, I've already, within my speech, mentioned that there is a Karabakh region in Azerbaijan. And former Russia or Soviet presentation of this region is absolutely wrong. There was a Democratic Republic of Germany, and then after unification, we have United Germany. And that's why we are calling Germany. And now we have Karabakh, and that's why, of course, I'm in favor of that. Thank you very much.
30 seconds. What is, does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Mr. Gavin, the rapporteur. Mr. Schwabe.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This Parliamentary Assembly is not to make political games. It's very clear that there are other majorities and you just play games here with the support of the chair of the EC group. We have to know it. So I ask you to reject this amendment because it's just to prolong the debate here and to criticize it and do so with others as well and to follow the rapporteur, Mr. Gavin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schwabe. What is the opinion of the committee? Mr. Goncharenko.
Committee has rejected with a vast majority.
Thank you, Mr. Goncharenko. I shall now put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. No point of order during voting.
The committee was in favor of this amendment.
Sorry.
Yes, that's my mistake. Point of order, Mr. Sedov is absolutely right.
Sorry.
Just have the floor, please, President, just to say, I don't accept the argument that Mr. Sadov has made.
Sorry,
however,
we are not going to
in this specific sentence, we are in favor.
Number 4.
Yeah, my apologies. That's my mistake. Committee supported this amendment with vast majority.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Goncharenko. These things can happen. I now will put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the vote. Can the results be displayed? The amendment is adopted. That means that amendments number 5 and 6 fall. We come to amendment number 7. I call Mr. Sadov to support amendments number 7. You have 30 seconds. Please support the amendment. You have 30 seconds.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Even though the terms of the conflict and dispute are interchangeably used, however, they have different meaning in the legal context. Disputes are generally used in the personal freedom and rights context. However, when there is a military aggression, when there is occupation, the correct term for interstate relations is the conflict. Therefore, I ask our colleagues to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone who wishes to speak against the amendment? What's the opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko?
Committee supported it with vast majority.
Thank you very much.
7, Amendment 7. Committee supported with vast majority.
7 is supported with a vast majority. I now shall put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. I call for the results to be displayed. The amendment is adopted. We come to amendment number 8. I call Mr. Sadov to support amendment number 8. You have 30 seconds. Please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. President. According to the resolutions of the United Nations Security Council, European Parliament, and also this Assembly, Armenia kept 20% of the internationally recognized territory of Azerbaijan under occupation for almost 30 years. So therefore, in order to give some historical context to the report, we would like to add the following paragraph to the paragraph 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? What is the opinion of the committee?
Committee is against with vast majority.
Thank you very much. I now shall put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. I call for the results to be displayed. The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 9. I call Mr. Madam, you have the floor.
Yes. Amendment number 9. Well, we would like, in the second sentence, after the words, it notes that, add the following words. Following the 28 years of fruitless internationally mediated talks, because clearly international organizations failed their job when it came to the occupation of Azerbaijani lands. And with this type of extremely biased reports, the distrust into the intentions of this organization will even deepen.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? What is the opinion of the committee? Mr. Goncharenko.
Committee is against with vast majority.
Thank you very much. I shall now put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Vote is closed. I call for the results to be displayed. The amendment is rejected. We now come to amendment number 10. Please, Madam.
Yes, amendment number 10 in the draft resolution, paragraph second sentence, we would like to replace the word regained control, parts of, with the word liberated, because for 30 years, lands of Azerbaijan were occupied by Armenia. There are UN Security Council resolutions, this assembly approved that, dozens of other documents, and I don't really understand why are we saying regained control instead of liberated, which is a fact. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Arparadai. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? What? Mr. Corbyn?
Very briefly, Mr. President, this is irrelevant to the report. The report is about the Lachin Corridor, and I think all these amendments are barely designed to delay and hopefully, with their views, to try and destroy this report. I think we should reject this and all the subsequent amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Corbyn. What is the opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko?
Committee is against with vast majority.
I now shall put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. Can we see the results be displayed? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment. This is unanimously approved, yeah? So we go for yes. We come to amendment number 12. Who is going to support it? You have the floor, 30 seconds.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paragraph 3 refers to the end of a conflict, which is only a tactical goal. But strategical goal is to achieve a peace. For that reason, we suggest to replace the words "the end of" with the following phrase: the establishment of a lasting peace between the two neighboring countries and leaving behind, and only then, a conflict.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Mr. Schenach.
Peace is more than only ceasefire, and I think to have peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan, more has to be done as it's at the moment, and I think there is too much hate between the two states that we can speak about peace.
Thank you, Mr. Schenach. Mr. Goncharenko, what's the opinion of the committee?
Committee is against with vast majority.
Thank you very much. I now shall put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. I call for the results to be displayed. The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 13. Who is going to support amendment number 13? Sir, you have the floor.
Is it on? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paragraph 4, we suggest to include the following phrase: acting in accordance with the relevant norms and principles of international law. This is actually the restatement of the inherent right of Azerbaijan under Article 51 of the United Nations Charter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gaderi. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? Don't see any. What's the opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko?
Committee is against with vast majority.
Thank you. I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 14. Who's going to support it? Mr. Gaderi.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is also a suggestion to replace the word reclaim with the liberated, because Azerbaijan territories were occupied. They always belonged to Azerbaijan. They were not reclaimed. They were just simply liberated. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Don't see any. What is the opinion of the committee? Mr. Goncharenko?
Committee is against with vast majority.
I shall now put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. I call for the results to be displayed. The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 15. Who's going to support amendment number 15? There's Mr. Husseinov.
Yes. In this paragraph, we propose to replace the word force with fighting against the occupying military force of Armenia. In the light of the ongoing negotiation process between Armenia and Azerbaijan on the normalization of interstate relations, unfortunately, the current report is untimely, unfair, and inaccurate. In this phrase, this is a historical background of the conflict. The context should be given to readers accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? I don't see any. I do see any. Mr. Schenach.
We should not forget about the reason of this resolution. It's the closed corridor, which is a humanitarian act, and this has nothing to do with this amendment, which makes it only longer in the text. We have to act for a humanitarian reason.
Thank you, Mr. Shannock. What is the opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko?
Committee is against with vast majority.
Thank you very much. I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. I call for the results to be displayed. The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 16. If adopted, amendment 70 will fall. Who is going to support amendment? Mr. Husseinov.
In this paragraph, we propose to replace the phrase with the new wording. The current text arbitrarily overlooks the consistent efforts that Azerbaijan has been making since November 2020 with respect to addressing the rights and security of ethnic Armenian residents of the conflict-affected territories. Azerbaijan has consistently expressed its determination to reintegrate these residents as equal citizens.
Thank you very much, Mr. Husseinov. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment, Mr. Shannock?
This sounds like a fairy tale. I don't see where are the efforts of reintegration of Armenian residents, and I think it sounds a little bit dangerous as it is written here. Don't force them to be, they give back their citizenship, as we know, which is discussed in your country.
Committee is against with vast majority.
I shall put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. I call for the results to be displayed. The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 17. Who is going to support amendment 17? Mr. Husseinov.
In this phrase, we propose to delete the word countries. Leadership has not made any efforts to reassure, and after the words, this territory at the words is not reassured yet. The report contains numerous baseless and unacceptable accusations against Azerbaijan and does not reflect the real situation in the region as well as around the Lachin Road.
Thank you, Mr. Husseinov. Does anybody wish to speak against this amendment? That is not the case. The opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko.
Committee is against with vast majority.
I shall put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. Can we have the results be displayed? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 3. I call Mr. Rubinian to support amendment number 3. You withdraw it? Does anybody else want to move it? Not the case. We come to amendment number 18. Who's going to support amendment number 18? Madam Arparadai.
In the resolution paragraph 4, second sentence, we propose to add the following words after trilateral statement, including the continued illegal military presence of Armenia on the sovereign territory of Azerbaijan, the transfer of weapons and ammunition, most probably landmines there, to the illicit extraction of Azerbaijan's natural resources and the misuse of the Lachin Corridor for those purposes in breach of the trilateral statement. This will make the paragraph more comprehensive because this is all the facts.
Thank you, Madam Paradai. Does anybody wish to speak against? Mr. Shannock.
That is the wording to try to describe why the corridor is now broken. Madam, you know, as we know both, that there is no transport of weapons and ammunition in this area. And we should not continue with some fake news.
Thank you, Mr. Shenach. What is the opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko?
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Can we have the results be displayed? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 19. Who wants to support amendment number 19? Nobody. If nobody moves amendment number 19, then it falls. Then we come to amendment number 20. Who wants to support amendment number 20? Madam, you have the floor.
No. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In this amendment, we propose to replace the words subsequent deliberate cutting with the following words interruption, because claiming that cuttings were deliberate are unfounded and based on poor speculations spread by Armenia. Therefore, it should be rectified.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? I do not see. What is the opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko?
Committee is against with vast majority, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the vote. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 21. Madam?
In this amendment, we proposed in the draft resolution at the end of the paragraph 4 add the following words, as a result of infrastructure failure, because here we want to clarify that reasons for possible cuttings were related to infrastructure failures and not deliberate cuttings as it claims currently.
Thank you, Madam. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? Mr. Shenach?
To turn off the gas and close the gas for 3 days is not the feeling that there is infrastructure failures. In the electricity is right, but Azerbaijan forbid to renew the infrastructure for electricity, but in gas it's not true.
Thank you, Mr. Shenach. Mr. Goncharenko, the opinion of the committee?
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 22. Who's going to support, Madam?
We propose to replace the word struck by with the following words concerned by, because here we believe that strike by is not an appropriate expression.
Thank you, Madam. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? I don't see any. Mr. Goncharenko, the opinion of the committee?
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the votes. Can we see the results? Amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 23. Mr. Sadov.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our leadership and government is really very serious with all questions which we faced. And that's why when we can see that in the report, Mr. Gavel tried to present that government of Azerbaijan is not serious, that's ridiculous. Of course, we are against, and I think for everybody is clear that this situation in the region is a very serious, and that's why all parties, Azerbaijan and others, are very serious. And that's why we're in favor to delete the wordings which we can see.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sadov. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? I do not see any. The opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko?
Committee is against with vast majority, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Goncharenko. Put the amendment to the vote. The vote. I close the vote. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 24. Who is going to support amendment 24? Mr. Seidel.
Mr. Chairman, we wanted to add the following words: related to the misuse of the Lachin road contrary to the trilateral agreement. This is obvious that the major problem that this corridor, unfortunately, misused by Armenians, and that's exact facts that ammunition, mines, rotation of the military personnel have been happened there. And that's why, of course, we are in favor of this amendment.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against it? Mr. Sienna.
Some minutes before you spoke about peace, and now you write this. You know that there is no misuse. If you transport food, medicine, and other necessaries to people who could not move out of this area, this is not a misuse in any way. And but it's a question of really peace if you allow that.
Thank you, Mr. Shenak. Mr. Goncharenko, what is the opinion of the committee?
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment 25. Mr. Seidel.
Mr. President, it's really very strange because everybody who is talking in favor of this report, they are talking about the ethnic Armenians. In these amendments, we wanted to include the wording, including local Armenians, ethnic Armenians, but I don't understand why committee is against. We are in favor to take into account those citizens of Azerbaijan, Armenians who are living in Karabakh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seidel. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Don't see any. Mr. Goncharenko, opinion of the committee?
Committee is against with vast majority.
Thank you so much. I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 26. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, President. I would like to remind our colleagues that Azerbaijan has ensured free and safe movement of Armenian residents in both directions at Lachin border checkpoint. Despite these efforts, on June 15, our border guard was injured as a result of firing of the border checkpoint by Armenia. It seems that Armenia is resorting to such provocations, including that one here, because it's deprived of its illegal activities it carries through the Lachin road. Therefore, this is so-called humanitarian crisis in the region is baseless. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Mr. Shenak.
If there would be free and safe access through the corridor, then we did not need this resolution. So this is contrary to the resolution, and please vote against.
Thank you very much. Mr. Goncharenko, opinion of the committee?
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the vote. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 27. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Armenia, which constantly targeted the civilian population during 30-year-long occupation, carried out ethnic cleansing against nearly 1 million Azerbaijanis, committed massacres against them, and prevented them from returning to their land in a dignified and safe manner with its military provocation, and now accusing of Azerbaijan carrying out so-called ethnic cleansing is a clear example of hypocrisy. Therefore, I call you to support our amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Don't see any. Sorry, Mr. Rubinian.
Thank you. I'm against the amendment, but I just wanted to use this opportunity to remind everyone.
You are only time to speak against the amendment.
Yes, I'm speaking to remind everyone that it's very important that everyone stays, because the tactics of the Azerbaijani delegation is to prolong the process so that people leave and the recommendation is not passed. Thank you.
Sorry, that was not an explanation of your vote against, so please stick to the order. The opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko.
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the vote. Can we see the results? It's rejected. Amendment number 28. Sir?
Yes. This is not a tactic. This is called democracy.
Sorry, stick to the issue.
Yeah, I'm coming. Okay. Lachin border checkpoints should not be viewed as a pilot project. Prime Minister Pashinyan took obligation to restore all economic and transport links in the region. Till now, the Republic of Armenia has not guaranteed the safety of transport links between the western regions of Republic of Azerbaijan and Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic in order to organize an unimpeded movement of citizens, vehicles, goods in both directions. Therefore, I call all of you to support our amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? It's not the case. Opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko.
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 29. If it is adopted, amendment 30 will fall. Who wants to speak? Madam Aparadai.
Mr. President, we would like the Armenian population of Nagorno-Karabakh, we would like to replace it with the following words, Armenians living in Azerbaijan, because as my colleague has already mentioned, there is no such place as Nagorno-Karabakh, and it is against our constitution to call it Nagorno-Karabakh. The region is called Karabakh.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Mrs. Sienach.
At the end, for a really peace and for a peaceful future, we need a status like an autonomous region inside Azerbaijan. But to say only Armenians in Azerbaijan, sorry, this is too less.
Thank you very much. Mr. Goncharenko, opinion of
Committee is against this amendment with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the vote. Let us see the results. The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 30. Madam Apardai.
Dear parliamentarians, again the same thing, and a couple of days ago we've been discussing, the committee was discussing the change of the name from Belarus to Belarus, and I don't know why the assembly is not consistent and cannot change Nagorno-Karabakh to Karabakh. There is no such place at Nagorno-Karabakh. The region is called Karabakh.
Thank you very much. Anybody wish to speak against the amendment? I do not see any.
Committee is against with vast majority, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 31. Who's going to support Madam Alparadai?
In amendment number 31, delete the words between Baku and Khankanti Stepanakert and neutral international involvement in any peace implementation mechanisms. First of all, we don't really understand why we are using word Stepanakert. The region is called Khankandi. And secondly, neutral international involvement is not clear in the text. The peace deal that is currently under discussion between Armenia and Azerbaijan is going on with mediation, and also the integration agenda being pursued by the government of Azerbaijan with local ethnic Armenians. So this is the proposal that we have.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Opinion of the committee?
Committee is against with vast majority, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. close the votes. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 32. Who wants to speak in favor of the amendment? Madam Aparadai.
Mr. President, Amendment 32, delete the words between Baku and Khankendi Stepanakert, because the dialogue is to be conducted between the central authorities in Baku and local ethnic Armenians living in Karabakh region of Azerbaijan. In the current sentence, the wording Khankendi Stepanakert is not acceptable, since it may insinuate representing some kind of identity which is not and can't be the case.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? I do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko, opinion of the committee.
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Close the votes. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 33. Who's going to speak in favor of it? Mr. Gaderi.
Dear friends, believe me, I also would like to leave this room as soon as possible, but
stick to
the game is not. So, Amendment 33, the context of it is the designation of a special representative to conduct a dialogue with Armenian community in Karabakh. And in fact, they already had one negotiations, but since then they never met. So we suggest after paragraph 8, which remains as it is, to insert the following paragraph. The Assembly welcomes the designation by Azerbaijan of a special representative to pursue a dialogue with Armenians living on its territory, and it encourages the further pursuit of this dialogue with a view to ensuring their rights
Thank
and
you very
security.
much. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko.
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the votes. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 34. Who wants to speak in favor of the amendment?
The Chairman, it's again about addition of another paragraph after paragraph 8, which again remains as it is. And it reads as follows. The Assembly knows that Azerbaijan has established a border checkpoint on the interstate border with Armenia in full compliance with international practice and provides all necessary conditions for the movement of all local Armenians residents in both directions. In this context, it deplores attempts by the Armenian side seeking to prevent local Armenians from using this checkpoint freely, which ultimately affects their situation. I would like to remind you that establishment of a checkpoint on international recognized body is sovereign right of any state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko, opinion of the committee.
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Close the vote. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 35. Who is going to support it, sir? You have the floor.
It's inaccurate to describe the situation as if Azerbaijan is not complying with the interim measures indicated by the European Court of Human Rights. At least in the case of the ill persons mentioned in the report, all ambulances passed through the road and hundreds of Armenians reunited with their families on both sides.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko, the committee's opinion.
You will not be surprised. Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 36. Sir.
We resolutely reject the absurd allegations. The statement is factually wrong. We remind Armenia once again that despite the creation of appropriate conditions for the transparent and safe passage of the local Armenian residents of Karabakh region of Azerbaijan in both directions at the Lachin border checkpoint, and the fact that hundreds of Armenian residents of Karabakh region of Azerbaijan have passed through the checkpoint since its establishment, it's a provocation of Armenian armed forces that obstructed the safe passage from the Lachin checkpoint.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko?
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the vote. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 37. Who's going to support it, sir?
It's me again. It seems that Armenia is restoring to such provocations because it's deprived of the illegal activities it carried out through the Lachin Road after 2020, as well as because it's concerned about the positive approach demonstrated by Azerbaijan during the passage of Armenian residents. And the so-called humanitarian crisis in the region propaganda of Armenia is baseless.
Thank you, Mr. Yafarov. Anyone wants to speak against it? What's the opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko?
Against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the votes. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 1. If it will be adopted, then the amendments 38, 39, 40, 41 and 42 fall. I call Mr. Rustamian to support. No. Withdrawn. Anybody else wants to move it? Don't see any. Then we come to amendment number 38. Who's going to support it?
I support.
Mr. Husseinov.
We propose to delete following phrase because this paragraph does not reflect sufficiently clearly and accurately the essence of the relevant legal proceeding. The application of Azerbaijan submitted to the ICJ requesting the indication of interim measures concerning another interstate case on substantively different matter, thus cannot be construed as a mirror application. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody wishes to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko, the committee's opinion?
Against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 39. Who's going to support 39? Mr. Husseinov. Microphone.
We propose to replace this following phrase because most recently Azerbaijan designated special representative to the dialogue with local ethnic Armenians who has already conducted first round of talks on 1st March 2023. Instead of acknowledging these and other efforts and encouraging further steps, the report passes over them in silence and replicate one-sided accusations stemming from the false and unsubstantiated narrative of Armenia, which serves to denigrate Azerbaijan's efforts to this end.
Thank you very much. Anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko, committee's opinion?
Against with vast majority, Mr. President.
Put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Close the vote. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 40. Who's going to support amendment number 40? Mr. Husseinov.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we propose to replace the phrase allegation with profound concerns because denying the illegal presence of military personnel of Armenia and Azerbaijan, abuse of Lachin Road over the last 2 years is vivid example of hypocrisy, and Azerbaijan provided a number of well-documented reports, including videos proving that. Therefore, they cannot be allegations. We propose to change allegations with profound concern to reflect the situation accordingly.
Thank you very much. Anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko.
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Vote is closed. I call for the results to be displayed. The amendment is rejected. I come to amendment number 41. Madam?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We propose to replace the word Nagorno-Karabakh with Azerbaijan's sovereign territories as well as rotation and funding of armed formations therein. Because the presence of the armed forces of Armenia in the territory of Azerbaijan is not disputed, and even was confirmed by the senior officials of Armenia. Also, the establishment of checkpoint has extensively prevented the rotation of those forces. Armenia continues to fund these illegal armed formations, which is also confirmed by the leadership of this country.
Thank you very much, Madam Karamzada. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko?
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the votes. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 42. Madam Karamzada?
Yes. In this amendment, we propose to replace the words Nagorno-Karabakh with Karabakh, because the place should respect Azerbaijan constitution and official toponyms.
Thank you, Madam. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko?
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 43. Who's going to support it? Mr. Seedorf.
Mr. Chairman, our amendment is to replace the word Nagorno-Karabakh. We already discussed this, but we insist to do that with the following words: the relevant area. This is reflected the reality, and we ask to support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against it? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko?
Against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 44. Who's going to support it, Mr. Seedorf?
This is actually the same, but we insist to take into account the realities. There is a Karabakh region of Azerbaijan. You should take into account this reality, because otherwise that would be very difficult to reach the peace, and that's why we're in favor of this amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against it? Do not see any. Opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko?
Against with vast majority.
Put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the votes. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 45. Mr. Seedorf?
Mr. President, at my speech, I already said that Azerbaijan has opened all doors for Red Cross, and we, on a very high level, cooperated with this international organization. But when we are talking about some other international organizations, that's not so understandable, and that's why we have international organizations in the region, and that's why we're in favor of this amendment.
Thank you very much. Anybody wants to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko?
Against with vast majority.
Committee against with vast majority. I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 46. Mr. Seedorf?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the major problem sometimes we can see within international organizations that absence of relevant standards, which unfortunately we can see. And that's why from this point of view, this is really very important that UNESCO will be in line with their respective initiative and relevant principles regarding international humanitarian assistance. That's why we are in favor of this amendment.
Thank you very much. Anybody wish to speak against it? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko, opinion of the committee.
Attention, believe or not, committee is in favor with vast majority. Thank you.
I shall put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is adopted. We come to amendment number 47. Who's going to support amendment 47? Madam Aparadai.
In Amendment 47, in draft resolution, first sentence replaced the words of Nagorno-Karabakh with the following words: living in the territories of Azerbaijan where the Russian peacekeepers are temporarily deployed, because this is factually correct.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against it? Not the case. Mr. Goncharenko.
No more surprises, dear colleagues. Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the votes. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 48. Madam Aparadai.
In number 48, in draft resolution, paragraph 13, delete the second sentence, because this is misleading statement, as Azerbaijan closely works with ICRC since the beginning of the conflict.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Opinion of the committee?
Against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 49. Who's going to support it? Madam Aparadai.
In the amendment number 49, we propose the following paragraph. In the full recognition of Armenia's and Azerbaijan's territorial integrity, the Assembly underlines the need to achieve normalization of their relations, and to this end, it strongly supports the negotiations on a peace agreement between the two countries to ensure lasting peaceful coexistence, reconciliation, and cooperation in the region. It also strongly encourages both countries to invest all efforts towards the opening of all transport communications in the region, including the route between Azerbaijan and its Nakhchivan region. In the meantime, it urges Azerbaijan to take necessary measures at its disposal.
Anyone wants to speak against the amendment? Not the case. Opinion of the committee? Mr. Goncharenko.
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the votes. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 50. Who is going to speak? Amendment number 50, Madam Paradai, 30 seconds.
Well, in amendment number 50, we propose to use the word on its territory. Actually, it was changed. That is, in the initial version of the report, that was the phrase, but I don't know why rapporteur has changed it overnight. So we propose to return it to the previous one.
Thank you very much. Anybody wish to speak against it? Don't see any. Opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko.
Against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 51. Who's going to support amendment number 51?
Amendment number 51, again, the word Karabakh, because I think that the fact that our assembly doesn't want to be consistent in that and doesn't want to accept it creates more distrust among our population. If we change Belarus to Belarus, the assembly should change Nagorno-Karabakh to Karabakh. This is a right, correct version of the region, name of the region.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko, opinion of the committee?
Is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the votes. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 52.
Yes, it's me. Hate speech is by no means unique to any single society. And instead of being a one-sided report, the proposed amendments aim at making the paragraph more balanced and comprehensive by recalling commitments of both Azerbaijan and Armenia. And I kindly ask you, to all of my colleagues, to support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak against it? Do not see any. The opinion of the committee, Mr. Goncharenko.
Against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 2. I call Madam Sonia Gazarian to support amendment number 2. Withdraw. Anybody else wishes to move in? Not the case. Withdrawn. Amendment number 53. Mr. Yafarov.
Thank you, Mr. President. In draft resolution, we would like to replace paragraph 16 with the following paragraph. The Assembly believes that in the context of dialogue between Azerbaijan authorities and ethnic Armenian residents, which should in any case cannot be detrimental to the Armenians living in Azerbaijan, and innovative solutions could be found to protect the rights of Armenians in Karabakh within the toolbox provided by the Council of Europe, which includes standards, instruments, and programs. The Assembly therefore emphasizes the importance of taking full advantage of existing standards, instruments, programs related to the enjoyment of minor rights, language, and education, and local self-government options.
30 seconds. Anybody wish to speak against it? Mr. Goncharenko, opinion of the committee?
Is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the votes. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 54. Who wants to support it? Mr. Yafarov.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I would like to tell my colleagues that Nagorno-Karabakh, the word Nagorno is neither Azerbaijani nor Armenian word. It's a Russian word. And even the EU Council President Charles Michel, and when we have trilateral meeting, and following the trilateral meetings in the communiques, they never used, Charles Michel never used this word. And I don't know why our rapporteur is insistent about this terminology.
Thank you very much. Anybody wish to speak against it? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko.
Against with vast majority.
Committee is against with vast majority. Put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. Close the votes. Can we see the results? The amendment is rejected. We come to amendment number 55. Who's going to support amendment 55? Mr. Gaderli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In paragraph 17, we suggest to replace the words consequences of the absence of free and safe access through by the phrase situation concerning. European Court of Human Rights and International Court of Justice don't use the phrase free and safe. The European Court uses the phrase free, safe access, and International Court of Justice unimpeded movement. None of them means free movement. Freedom of movement is not an absolute right, and every European Convention provides for legitimate reasons to restrict it. Thank you. So it's a situation rather than.
Seconds. Does anybody wish to speak against the amendment? Do not see any. Mr. Goncharenko, opinion of the committee?
Committee is against with vast majority.
I put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. I close the votes. Can we see the result? The amendment is rejected. We now will proceed to vote on the draft resolution contained in document 15796 as amended. A simple majority is required. The vote is open. I close the votes. Can we see the results? Yeah. The resolution is adopted. We now will consider the draft recommendation contained in document 15796, to which 7 amendments have been tabled. I understand that the representative of the Committee on Migration, Refugees and Displaced Persons wishes to propose to the Assembly that the amendments 56 to 62 to the draft recommendation, which were rejected by the committee with a 2/3 majority, be declared as rejected. Is it so, Mr. Koncharenko?
Yes, exactly, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to this proposal? Not the case. That means that amendments number 56 to 62 to the draft recommendation are rejected. I call now Mr. Sadov to support. They're all rejected.
We go directly to the recommendation, adoption of the recommendation.
Sometimes things take time, sometimes things go fast. That means we now are going to vote on the draft recommendation, and I tell you that the 2/3 majority required counting only affirmative and negative votes. Vote is open on the recommendation. The vote is closed. I call for the results to be displayed. The recommendation is adopted with a 2/3 majority. Congratulations. May I compliment everybody for their patience in this procedure. The Assembly will hold its next public sitting tomorrow afternoon at 10 o'clock with the agenda which was approved on Monday. I would like to remind those members who are not attending the remainder of this part session to return their voting cards to the dedicated box at the entrance of the chamber before leaving the Palais. The sitting is adjourned.